allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to change the lineup just a little bit. Mary Ellen Adapetro is with us today to talk about the outdoor assembly permit for the annual 5K run. Mary Ellen, you want to walk us through it?
Okay, this will be our 23rd year, the last 3 years being virtual with COVID. But we are raising money for the North and South Fork Breast Health Coalitions, as well as Lucia's Angels for families dealing with the later stages of breast cancer. Our donations go directly to patient care, and it's a minimal effort, I think, on the part of Shelter Island. We keep it enclosed in that little community. I've already talked to Sunset Beach about using their parking lot. The insurance is in place for the race for the town and Sunset Beach. The only thing we would require is police presence for road closures and dealing with the road, as well as the highway, if we could have extra receptacles and stuff for the barbecue that we do after the race.
Okay, and I would assume it's just like the 10K, you go over everything with the chief and everything's.
Yeah, I think he's had a protocol for years. Obviously, we haven't done it. And it's worked very well with the lane closures and using one side of the road for the actual runners to finish.
Okay. Any questions from the town board?
It's a wonderful event.
Okay.
Mary Ellen,
Yeah, thanks again.
Great job for doing this.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We'll see you there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have the letter from the chief stating that they're prepared and ready to handle it the same way they have in the past. So they know they have the routine.
Okay, we'll start with, we have some wetlands applications for next week's town board meeting, 3 Oak Tree Lane. We opened the hearing on this one. We have gotten a letter from Pam Demarest with some concerns. We also heard from Matt on?
Yes.
Matt Sherman. Stephen,
Well, I have a question, and you may have answered this already, Matt, before, but on diagram A106, there is a gunite cistern listed under the decking. What is that for?
Yeah, thank you. And you'll have to bear with me a little bit. I'm having a hard time with your audio. It's cutting in and out, but I'm getting the gist of what you're saying. The cistern, that gunite cistern that's shown between the swimming pool and the building, that was it was originally part of one of the previous swimming pool designs. They had looked at doing infinity edges, things like that. So having a surge tank or a tank that would control that water flow through the swimming pool was part of one of the previous designs. That is no longer under consideration, but what we would like to see happen is use that, excuse me, that gunite cistern area to be used for a cistern that can be utilized during the grow-in of the new vegetation. So get that new vegetation established with off-island water, so they're not using handheld sprinklers or anything like that that you would normally use for establishing the vegetation. There's more than enough room in that area to get a cistern. That's the required minimum 8,000 gallon size. So that would help. That would help in establishing that vegetation for that first year and a half, 2 years, whatever it takes to establish that that new vegetation.
Thank you.
Is irrigation?
So I guess my question is, so does that mean that you guys want to do irrigation?
Just for the establishment of those that vegetation. I'm not sure if I'm looking at my list of people online to see if there's anybody. Oh yeah, LaGuardia Design is online right now, so they can they can chime in and establish what the requirements are going to be for either short-term and or long-term irrigation. And I will, I'll hand it over to them.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, just as Matt mentioned, it's really the irrigation system would just be for the initial plant establishment for the first year or two. Our goal is to certainly shut it off after year one, being that we're proposing all native plant material that requires very little irrigation. And just to have that backup measure, should we have periods of lengthy drought that we have, just to ensure plant vitality long term, that we have a backup means with that cistern, so that we don't have large scale die off of all of the native planting.
So would it be trucked in water, or are you going to try to recover the water?
Trucked in.
Trucked in, yeah, trucked in water.
I guess the reason is because we don't have in the code that we're allowed to catch it yet, right? Okay.
I mean,
Perfect
this would be
location to catch it.
a new irrigation system in the near shore overlay, right?
Yeah, I don't think,
So does code allow that?
Well, I think we have, that's what I'm saying. I think we're going to have to really this winter address that code, because this is a perfect example of it. The runoff's going to go right into the bay. It's not going to recharge.
well, they're going,
Capture it.
they're putting it into dry wells. They are doing that, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah, no, the runoff's going into dry wells. It has to
Yeah.
be that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, my question is,
from the roofs, I mean.
yeah, is just in general, does code allow for a new irrigation
it's not-
system in the near shore overlay?
So it doesn't allow now for a new irrigation in near shore overlay. That's the.
That's my question. Does it or does it not? I have to look it up. I don't know the answer.
All right.
I think we have a total of 6 of them in the Silver Beach area out of whatever we have on the island, the 120 or whatever we have on the island. But 6 of them are in Silver Beach, and they are in the near shore area.
6 irrigation systems?
Yeah, I don't see a prohibition in the code.
Okay.
Okay.
Correct.
And also, please keep in mind that this is not for an ongoing irrigation
Right.
system. This is to get things established. The code allows them to irrigate with a handheld hose coming off of the well. Everybody recognizes that that's a bad idea. So this is a way to keep those plants from, as mentioned, having a significant amount of die off in the event of inadequate rainfall. And so it's a win-win. We're putting extra water into the aquifer by virtue of what goes through this irrigation system. The plants are being established, and we're not putting any additional drain on the well that's on site.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt, just out of curiosity, when you put in the, and I know you're replacing the lawn with a lot of natural vegetation, that, did anybody ever get out there and figure out just how many feet of the old bulkhead is there? Because my concern would be that obviously you go through all this, 3 or 4 years down the road, you end up with some type of failure in that one spot on the bulkhead, and then you have to trample over. I know a lot of the work comes from the outside, obviously, but there would be some disturbance on the inside area where you just put these new plantings in. So that's, it would be nice if it's reasonable to try to get that bulkhead done, just to alleviate that concern down the road.
Yeah, that's not anything that we've looked up at this point. We did obviously discuss it at the hearing, and we will look at it if it looks like the bulkhead is something that should be addressed in the next, 5-10 years, then we will certainly do that in the, but for the purposes of this application, we want to keep those as separate issues altogether. If we do want to adjust the bulkhead, we've got to go back to the DEC. We've got to come back to the town board. So we would have to go through the normal permitting process. And we just don't want to muddy the waters by conflating those different permit applications and different projects.
So Stephen, the 2 questions that came up at the hearing were, is there a need for a special permit, and the position on secret?
Okay, the position on secret is the same, that we've
It's a
just,
type 2 action. You
Type
like it.
Action, okay.
and that determination in resolution. And a special permit for what?
For size variance, but it doesn't need that because
It's
she's
5,900.
area and not the square footage.
Right, yeah. But there's a question about, still have a problem with that pool house basement, Matt. I feel like it's going to be conditioned space eventually.
It's not. It's it's going to be storage. There, it is what it is.
All right,
A condition of the approval can make.
Yeah, and if they were to condition it, it would have to go through the proper permitting channels, which of course would then trigger a special permit application at that time.
yeah, all right. I have a question from the planning board letter. Matt, it says additional details for the water, will it be, are needed to ensure that it won't be for the cistern, that it won't be sitting in the groundwater. Did you address that anywhere?
The cistern itself is a 8-foot by 4-foot. It's basically an old 1,000-gallon septic tank. So it needs about 5 feet to 6 feet below grade. Up in that area, it's at about an 8-foot elevation, give or take. So we can 7 to 8 feet. So it will be just above groundwater.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. And also along those same lines, the planning board had asked about our storm drainage, wanting us to keep the bottom of the stormwater dry wells at least 2 feet above grade. We had it a little bit less of a separation distance. But what we can do is, without minimizing or lessening the capacity of that system, shrink the depth of some of those pools and add a couple of more. There's more room to do that. So rather than having a number of 8-foot by 6-foot pools, we can have 8-foot by 4 or 8-foot by 2, depending on what the final grade ends up being at any of those given locations where those dry wells are.
Right. And the no fertilizer, is that addressed on your plans, or should we put that in the approval?
It is on our plans. We had mentioned no fertilizer within the regulated area, but if in the resolution, the board wants to have no fertilizer at all, that's fine as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, something like that, I think. Because this is the first time we're like finding out about the irrigation, and even if it's temporary, I want to, we should be doing this per section 8 of the code. Have it registered, because if they're putting in a cistern, what's to prevent it from not being a permanent
Right,
installation?
that's what
and a
worries me.
permanent use? So I want to make sure when we're putting in the resolution, that has to be addressed.
Yeah, that's good.
Good point.
But that also requires that we have number of irrigation heads, type, when there's strip soaker, so we'll need more information on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, the east property on the other side of Oak Tree Lane, no plans for any parking or any construction or any use of that property at all, or am I wrong?
We had looked at that, but it's almost 100% within the regulated area. It's within 100 feet of the wetlands boundary, so we just weren't comfortable trying to make something happen over there because of its proximity to the wetlands to the north. So really, there is nothing planned for over there.
Including parking of vehicles or no?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. My main concern is going to happen from May, June, July, August, early September, next summer on Oak Tree Lane. I realize that to enter the property, and the property is going to be on the north side of the construction site, and that there's ample spots there for parking vehicles off the road. My major concern is, as construction vehicles moving out from that property onto Oak Tree Lane, it literally is a single lane. And people come kind of zipping around Peconic from either direction and will never anticipate. It's kind of a blind spot there. So I'm a little concerned about the safety issue, not so much during the winter time and early spring, but when the traffic really does increase, late spring to early fall, those 4 months, when a vehicle comes out of there, I just don't want to see a head-on collision. They don't normally slow down as they make that turn coming around there. Is there any suggestions you have about moving construction vehicles during the course of the day, safely in and out of that, almost like when a vehicle moves out, especially if they're backing up. Now, if they're backing up, that's an issue. If they can make a turn and come out, nose first, that would be advisable.
Mhm.
And then almost a second person with a flag that walks the vehicle that 100 feet out to Conic Avenue, because
Yeah.
you almost need that. I just think for safety reasons, it's a concern that I have. I don't want to see anybody.
That's a reasonable concern, and that certainly is not a problem to have somebody, when we're getting an RBS delivery or a concrete delivery or something, excuse me, that we could have somebody out there directing traffic, making sure that the vehicle can get into the site and out of the site safely without putting that vehicle in harm's way or anybody else in the area. The site is going to be set up, and we'd sent you a construction parking plan as part of the response to the initial hearing, where the site's set up in a way that typical delivery trucks can get into the site and out of the site with a little bit of coordination and using, somebody, one of the workers on site to help facilitate that. That's not a problem at all, and that makes good common sense.
The cistern has a meter on it.
I'm sorry?
Matt, the cistern will have a meter on it?
We can put a meter on it. We hadn't proposed that, but we certainly can.
I think we'll make that yeah, it's probably a good idea.
I think we need to really discuss the whole system before we try to just start something from scratch here.
Really?
Well, what's the meter gonna do? It's gonna tell you what's going in? Is it gonna tell you what's coming out, or, I mean, we need to have a discussion.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I guess we'll finish this hearing next week.
Yeah, so it'll be reopened at
Right.
the next meeting. And
Okay, the next application is 48 Lake Drive. This hearing was closed, so there'll be no public comment on it. We just have some issues. Again, the questions were, was it an expansion or not? I believe we determined it wasn't an expansion.
Steps.
And then same thing with the secret.
It's a type 2.
same design.
There's also,
Yeah,
right,
it's a type 2 action.
any other concerns on this one?
Not for me.
No, it was very straightforward.
Okay. Next is Derby WQI rebate.
Yeah, that's just going back to proper procedures
Mhm.
where historically we made sure that the town board knew that the W5 ticket application was before us. So rather than it just showing up as a resolution, it's available if anyone has any questions. Having been attending the WQI meetings, this one is a straightforward one.
Okay.
So there's nothing,
Mhm.
nothing unusual to be discussed unless someone has a question. So that's it. So it's getting back to presenting things properly for us.
Okay, very good. Okay, so then next on the list, we ask Gordon Gooding to come to make a presentation for the Community Preservation Fund on a possible purchase. Gordon?
I don't know whether the board has the photographs or not.
I love visuals. Thank you.
Christina, do you have these so we can share with the
Yeah,
public?
we have them on the,
Can do it.
do another one. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everybody today, okay?
Good, very well, thank you.
Okay, I came to talk about 32 Ram Island Drive, Suffolk County map 700-4-1-7. Okay, this parcel is located, directly north on Coffles Harbor. It's sort of sandwiched in to a lot of property sections that are there that are owned by the town, Suffolk County, and these properties have been preserved many years ago and was part of the Section 9. I guess the best thing to do, if I could show that one map where all the different properties, that's this one, the other one, if it would be.
Christina, could you blow it up a little?
Yeah, that would be fine, that's what I was looking.
I did this map, I thought it would be informative, so you got an idea of what goes down into this area, and they're sometimes confused as to what the town owns and what's going on down here. So the S means it's a Suffolk County purchase, some of it's a Suffolk County and the town. And you can see it's surrounded, the parcel we're talking about is this one right down here, 41-1-7, okay? Across the street, this long parcel here is about 10 acres. That belongs to the Overlook property in Hay Beach. And this goes all the way down to our town landing here, okay? There is a buildable section here of about 2.5 acres.
And the adjacent lot is the one with the house on it, right?
That's correct.
Yes, okay.
Is that number 28 there? Okay.
So this property, believe it or not, we've been dealing with, the CPF has, not myself, but other members of the CPF group have been dealing with this. It goes back probably into 2012 from what I'm looking at. I guess, so it has some value to us because it's adjacent to existing properties, okay? Why are we concerned? Why do we want this acquisition? What it's doing is it eliminates, the potential of another home in a very sensitive environmental area. We only have one house up there that's on stilts. That piece of property that's there, could possibly be built on. Okay, there is a section of land about a little over 2 acres. Okay, so we're looking to eliminate another house in a sensitive area. Obviously, with community preservation, we're eliminating obviously septics. We eliminate also the potential of someone filing for the dock on Cockles Harbor, okay? The shoreline there is all marsh and wetlands, okay, so it serves a real purpose in cleaning the water and improving the quality of the water in Cockles Harbor. So we're really protecting the fragile marsh areas, which is important for the quality of the water. We sometimes are always dealing with drinking water and other things. In this case, this is a piece that is important because it does in fact have a vista. It's adjacent to other property, and we're working towards improving the quality of water. The parcel is 9.7 acres. Okay, in there are a lot of native plants. Okay, there's some cactus in there. Some of it on high tides are underwater. Okay, so it's really a very fragile area. There have been multiple people who have looked at this property in terms of trying to develop it. So that's basically why we're looking at it. Okay, we've dealt with CPF directly with the people who are selling it through the years. This is one that we are really in a partnership again with our friends from Suffolk County. Okay, it would be a 50-50 acquisition. Okay, and the vista from this area, okay, it really is wonderful. Our intent is for no structures. We don't need any improvements on it. Okay, it will be open to all the residents of Shelter Island. It's pretty straightforward why we would want this property, okay? We didn't want to have another piece of property on this land, okay, and we were able to work out something with our partner Suffolk County. And I think this is a good acquisition. I think it's a reasonably priced piece of property. I don't know whether this is the moment to talk about price or something to bring up. Okay, so this property has been valued in different ways, okay, but the Shelter Island portion of this property, okay, it is a $1 million transaction. We will be paying $500,000 for it, and the county is participating in their $500,000. With all properties that we enter into with Suffolk County, okay, they enter into these, our partnerships with the understanding, okay, that we are basically taking care of the maintenance of the property. And we develop stewardship plan, and we share that with obviously the board here, but also with Suffolk County. They have to look at it. Okay? Our committee, okay, unanimously voted 6-0 to acquire this property. And I'm just here to voice the recommendations to the town board to move forward and acquire this important property. I think it matches that whole area down there. I wish we had the piece across the street, but we don't have it at this particular time. Okay? That's all I have. Any questions?
Okay. But not so much a question. I know some people in the public said, well, why would you buy this? In 50 years, it's going to be underwater. But I think, it's been proven that, the county will let you build a house just about anywhere. So there could be houses there. There would be houses there if we didn't do this. And the other thing is, I know Bo Payne, as both the Bay Constable and the Animal Control Officer, said that's a very well-used parcel there between hunting and fishing and hiking, and it's a good part of local.
It's really sensitive, and you're right. I mean, that's why we struggled with this for many years, because what they felt it was worth. We come into the $500,000 range for CP for the town of Shelter Island, okay? I think based on 9 acres. And again, we don't know what's going to happen down the road, but we do know that people, like today I'm watching, you're dealing with permits and wetlands and everything else. So, there are things that can be done that we, going in the future, that we may not like, okay? And I think this is a really inexpensive way of protecting that whole Bunker City area, and Vista and so forth.
This is subject to.
Public hearing, depending on how we go forward. And so the contract, do you have the contract? A copy of the contract? Have you been given it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I can get it from you. I just want to see the contract. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like it because it's almost 10 acres. It's reasonably priced, I should say. I realize that, during extreme high tides, a lot of it is underwater, but it's very sensitive. But in terms of protecting our access of Ram Island Drive going out, it might be something to consider in the future, we own it with Suffolk County, that, have some control over that. That road could be threatened down the road, down the way. And I love the fact that Suffolk County is involved in this. I think it makes it, very doable. And as you said, and all the points that you just made, you just don't trust that somebody might not want to build on it. It was a mistake the first one, let's not make the same mistake twice. And I think we're getting a decent bang for the buck. I really do, for protecting this causeway.
I mean, Jim, our partners at Suffolk County, I mean, they have been exceptional.
Yeah.
Section 9 and that whole
Yes.
area down there. So
Yeah.
this is really the last piece here. I mean, there are other little pieces, but they're not buildable. And this really does have a dry section where
It does.
you can have a building envelope.
Been on it. It's a lot of wildlife, and
I hope the board can look at this in a favorable way and move forward, okay? Thank you.
I like that it's in the same area as the shellfish restoration kind of projects that we're working on.
I think that's another plus, another big plus. Good job, thanks.
Thank you, Gordon. Okay. Next on the list is the presentation of the budget. So what we'll do today is I'm going to read you the budget message. We're going to just quickly have a quick look through. give everybody an opportunity to take it home, write their questions down, then we're gonna have budget meetings Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. Okay? And this will be available online for everyone, and I'm assuming it was sent to the newspapers. Okay, as Supervisor and Chief Financial Officer, I am pleased to present my proposed tentative budget for the year 2023. Deputy Supervisor Amber Brock Williams, Account Clerk Shelby Mundy, Administrative Assistant Christina Montezova, and I met with each department leader and committee chairperson to record their proposals. After studying the year-to-date expenses and income alongside previous budgets and monies that were encumbered, I assembled my list of recommendations for 2023. Our previous 2021 and 2022 budgets were determined primarily by the unexpected COVID pandemic expenses for extra services needed, and also because of the lack of general revenue. Inflation and the necessity to address the need for basic municipal improvements on the island will govern this year's budget. In order to remain competitive and to retain our town employees and deter them from looking for better compensation employment elsewhere, the town board has been trying to improve our overall salary structure. Therefore, I am proposing a 4% general salary increase, with some areas amplified more. I'm proposing we continue to add electric vehicles to our fleet. This year, I'm proposing a third vehicle for use by the building department to be shared with the assessor's office. I'm also proposing that we double the amount that was budgeted last year for paid EMS coverage. While we currently have a one-year contract with Stony Brook Southampton Hospital to share that cost, I believe we need to be ready moving forward to either staff that position full-time 24/7, or at least have the funds available if a second responder is needed. To date, our paid EMS techs have responded to approximately 60% of the ambulance calls since they've been here. Another proposed increase is the addition of a part-time clerk for a number of our boards and committees. Last year, we tried to consolidate the workload of our existing committee clerks. However, the reality is the workload with new demands of electronic communications and filing have doubled. To efficiently execute the multiple tasks required of a clerk, a new position is necessary. While we continue to address the needs of the town board continues to implement user fees wherever possible. To date, we've increased contractor license fees and set new rates at the landfill for commercial users to offset the cost of operations at the landfill and the building department. The belief is that these fees should be user-specific as opposed to paid for by the general tax base. We've also begun to use WQI monies when applicable for the various town projects related to clean, safe drinking water. This year, the town board also raised fees in the building department. The workload there has grown exponentially in recent years, and again, we believe that this work should be compensated through user fees. I'm also proposing an increase in mooring fees, both commercial and residential. The last rate increase was in 1999. Here too, the town board believes that all waterways-related items should be paid through the Waterways Fund rather than through the general tax base. National CPI is hovering at about 8.3% for the past year's average. Between carefully managing our finances and increasing revenues to offset expenses, I am proposing a budget increase of approximately 5%. The town board will review my proposal and make any changes they deem necessary. Now we'll go through it. So just quickly on the mooring fees. My proposal is included in my budget proposal. We will have extended meetings about the mooring fees. We gave it to the WMAC to respond. We'll have something before we adopt the budget.
Okay.
Okay? So we have the budget book, and we'll go through it real quick. First page, it breaks it all down, and it looks like the amount to be raised, the increase from 2022 is 4.8%. Just real quick. Okay, again, 4% increase for personal services. The only exception there is the administrative assistant. I put in 2% because we created that position last year, and I felt we put it at a reasonable starting rate. So rather than try to catch up to 4%, I put that one at 2%.
Hi, can I interrupt just for a second, Jerry? It'll be really helpful if you could post it on the screen so we could see this.
Christina, you have it?
All right, we got a minute. What page are you on, Jerry?
This is page one.
3?
Page 3.
It's page one. Oh, I'm looking at mine.
Okay.
It just becomes number soup if you don't actually have the, the document.
It'll just take a minute, Julia. We're
Working on it.
we'll pause.
Thanks so much.
4 and 55 it is.
All right,
Found it.
okay.
This will get posted to the website later today.
Yes.
We're just waiting for it to get handed to us.
Just a comment as to kill some time as we're waiting to get this up. Just want to remind everybody. Where did that go here? Okay.
It's not you, you're good, keep going.
That since I've been on the board for the last 7 years, this is probably the lowest I've seen come in from the supervisor, 4.8%. I've seen it as high as almost 18%, or 16, I think it was 16.9 that went year. We've come in at a variety of different areas. So I just want you to know that 3 of the 5 town board members are seeing the budget virtually pretty much for the first time right now. We have an opportunity to look at this budget and to make further adjustments, whether it's up or down. I like the starting point of where we're at 4.8%. I love the fact of what Supervisor Siller and Amber have done in terms of revenues. I think that was, I know it's painful sometimes, but I think the rationale behind it is exceptional. And it's an important part of the ledger. We're going to keep budgets responsible. Page 4. Obviously, those revenues are extremely, extremely important. So I want to, for one, I think we're all very satisfied with what we've done in terms of the recycling center, building department, proposed mooring fee increases, things of that nature that we need to look at.
Okay, can you blow it up at all, Christina? Can you read it?
Any specific area you want to?
First 2
Is there a specific area?
Oh, just so people
There you
can
go.
see it, that's good. Yeah. Okay, again, so the personal services are 4% and 2% for the administrative assistant. Everything else remains the same, and this department had a 1.96% increase. Next on in the old book was the media, but we're going to consolidate media and IT, so we'll get to that. Next is the Justice Court, and we're looking at a 4% increase for everyone. The other new added in is travel. Travel, we put $1,500. The judges proposed they have the ability to, well, we are part of the East End Drug Court, and we needed to have the money to be able to get there and attend that. Again, that was basically the only increase. The judges did ask for $5,800 in office and miscellaneous. I knocked it down to $5,000. And this is an increase with the pay increases in the East End drug of 5.68%. Next is the supervisors. Again, we did 4% increases, except for the administrative assistant, again, 2%, because we created that position last year, and I feel it was a fair place to start. Everything else was 4%. The equipment, was a decrease in equipment. ADP, say everything else pretty much stayed the same. So really, so far, the majority of increases are going to be in personal services. And that was a decrease. Why was it a decrease, Amber?
Decrease where?
2,000. Okay. All right, we'll go over it. Next is town board other items. This is the independent auditor, keeping that at $75,500. Next to the tax receivers. The tax receivers came in and they wanted to, let's see, Again, 4% increase, but here again, the clerk hired new last year, and I feel comfortable that we started her at a fair salary, a competitive salary, so that's a 2% increase. Everything else, postage is going up. That's the only thing that's really going up there, except for the 4%.
Everything else is.
Right. Assessors are fairly involved here. This is kind of, this one, I think we'll do at at a work session, just so I can explain it all to you. Okay? Okay, next to the assessment board of review. Again, this is an increase, 4% across the board for the members and the clerk. In the town clerk's office. Town clerk's office, again, 4% increase. The one thing we did do after meeting with Dot was decided we're gonna take out this stipend line and just add it to the salary. Just so it's a little clearer that, there's 3 deputy clerks. And originally we had the stipend that was originally for the senior deputy clerk. But then somehow over the years, everybody got a stipend. So rather than do that, we're moving it so it's all salary. So that's gonna change. The numbers stay the same. When Sharon retired, we reallocated a lot of the money. We didn't, like we saved money, we reallocated it and used it other places. Another thing I'm proposing, Dot and I are proposing, is a summer intern to help out, with the little bit of craziness we have in the summer. And that would be a $5,000. And yes, yeah,
That would be helpful.
Number was 10.
right. Discretionary overtime, I raised it $200 up to $10,000. Also, you'll notice Association of Towns, rather than have it as a town board line, we decided to put it on everybody's use themselves. So we know who's going, it's going from each department to the Association of Towns. Okay. Okay, next is the attorney. Okay, the attorney, again, my feeling is, we hired an attorney at what I considered a fair rate. I put in for a 2% increase, and same with the aid for the attorney, we put in 2%. 4% miscellaneous, we're keeping the same. Training and conference, we're keeping the same. Engineering department, it's another one, it's a little bit confusing. When we hired the engineer, we advertised the job at $136,000. And after that was the advertisement. That's what it's, and then afterwards, I negotiated with the engineer and I got him down to 126 or 128.
126.
And I said, if things work out, we'll make you whole. So last year, we began that process to make him whole. And this year, I would like to do it. So the way I did it was I took the 135,000 that we originally advertised, and then added 2% and 2% for the 2 years. And it comes to 143,208. The Office of Miscellaneous is slightly increased. Professional services is down. Joe felt we didn't need that much money in professional services for the engineering department. Green options, 6,000, just the minimal increase there for the clerk. Public Works. Now, when we get into all the bargaining units, we're in a year where contracts are up and we're negotiating. So what we're doing is we're putting money in contingency because we have to have the money to cover it. And I remember when I was in office the first time, the police had been without a contract for 3 years. We went to binding arbitration and we didn't have the money put aside each year to pay them. So there's a little bit of a hole to dig ourselves out of. So there's money in contingency for this, and we're not tipping our hand because we're negotiating. So what we did was we kept it the same. We keep it the same. We put,
What we did is anyone that was non-union got the 4%. Anyone who was moving up a step, police or highway, that was
It's in there.
incorporated because it's basically keeping them flat, and then any negotiated will increase.
now, as you see the highlighted areas, it's gonna be in a number of places, Public Works, police, a few spots. These are all waterways-related, items. And again, our feeling is if they're waterways-related, they should be paid through the Waterways Fund. So, and well, you'll see that when we do the revenues at the end. So this is the overall Public Works. And then we have a breakdown of, what we feel comfortable with charging to the waterways. Public Works boat equipment, buoys and lifelines, town landings, dredging and boat maintenance. So we feel that those are items that should be paid per users that use the waterways.
That totals $25,800, so those 5 items, so it's, it's.
Yeah, it's a quarter of a percent.
Yeah.
Next is town board buildings. Again, this is a slight increase in, this is the first one we're hitting. Wait, did we do Public Works? Fuel? Yeah, our fuel prices are going up, obviously. And what Amber and I did was we looked at what we spent, what we budgeted, what we spent to date, and how under we are for this year. We came up with a number of about 45% that we feel comfortable as a general increase. Even though prices are going down, we don't know what's going to happen. So to play it safe, we've increased the fuel prices everywhere. So it's going from 16,320 to 28,000. So that's the significant increase there. Okay, the next one is IT and media. So what we did here was, we had an IT department, we had a media department, but it's the same people doing a lot of the same work. So we consolidated it and we broke it all down. And I'm trying to see what the major increases are here.
It's just a reallocation.
Yeah, it's just moving it really.
And it's the salary getting moved around because the responsibilities are getting reallocated a little bit.
Equipment, Kevin asked for 33,000. I put it at 30,000. That's negotiable. Maintenance is up this year. Maintenance was up because it's a lot of our contracts we have with East End Computer, but also for our security. As everybody knows, the county was ransomware and not just as a ransom, but they're out of work. They can't use the computers. So, we have backups. I'll tell you, sometimes we're way ahead of the county in the state and things we do.
Yeah.
So, I'm not, knock on wood, we don't want it to happen, but I think we're prepared if we.
Because through the first 8 months, we've spent 50,000 of the 54 budgeted.
Mhm.
So obviously, if you take, half of that, that's another $25,000. At that rate, it would go to about 75,000.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
That's conservative at 65.
Town board, other items, these are insurance fees we have. This is where we're putting in extra money in contingency for what I discussed previously.
But he's gonna use it all up.
MTA tax, we're keeping the same. Police, and again, this is the same thing, we're in negotiations. So we have, as Amber mentioned, some of the employees are non-contractual, not in the bargaining unit, so the increases are there for them. Other significant, let's see, equipment is going up. Last year, we budgeted 13,500. We modified the budget to 20,400, so I'm proposing 21,500. Why did the chief, do you have notes on that one? We'll go over that when he comes in. Yeah, it was
Yeah, we have
significant.
some back pages.
Yeah, we'll do that when we do our.
Yes,
When we go
yes.
through this, we make notes and make it public.
Right,
Yeah, there's towards pages 54. and 55.
Okay.
Have the
Breakdowns?
breakdown of
Okay.
different salaries plus some of these other.
Okay. All right, equipment, going from 13,500 to 21, I just said that.
Yes.
We're budgeting for a new car. We ordered a new car that we budgeted for this year and that we don't even have a production number yet. So, kind of crazy. A little bit slight increase in the firearms and ammunition based on, what we've spent to date. And again, here is a couple highlighted areas that maintenance for the boat and boat gas and oil, I believe should come from the Waterways Fund. And the fuel we increased percentage-wise accordingly. Jail, same thing, the attendance, 4% increase, everything else remains the same. Animal control. The animal control is 4% increase. Equipment is the same and contractual is the same. Yeah. Okay, equipment, we're knocking down from 3,300 to 2,500. Everything else is pretty much staying the same. The deer reduction management, that was originally the bulk of that money went to the four-poster system, the maintenance of them and the corn. The corn was a huge, cost. So rather than just say, oh, let's save that money, we're using it for the deer reduction program. And when Jimmy comes in, he can make a presentation on that.
Yeah.
Okay. IMS emergency management stays the same. The town social worker, again, I put in a 4% increase, but we do have a letter of resignation from the town social worker. So we're going to have to discuss that position and what we want to do going forward.
You didn't get one, Jamie?
Okay, next is the EMS. Again, we have
We gotta get that.
4% increase for the clerk and the director. The director asked about longevity, and we felt he wasn't eligible for it. Job description didn't.
It's a part-time position.
part-time,
Even
right.
though he's
Right.
elsewhere, this is a part-time position.
Okay. Equipment stays the same. Okay, here's the biggie. The ALS coverage, the per diem coverage for paid EMT. Last year, we budgeted 132,000. This year, I want to budget 241. I'm proposing 241,000. Again, as I said in the letter, two things. One, if we don't know, it's a year-to-year contract with Southampton. So, even though they're paying part of it,
Who knows?
we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We also might, if they continue to pay, we might go to 24-hour coverage, or we might need a second EMT. So I think it's just prudent that we start putting money for that.
Just so people see what that equates to, for every 110,000 or 15,000, that's 1% of your budget. So when you're looking at $241,000, you're looking at 2% of the budget. So when you see a 4.8%, almost 40% of that is for this one line, and so that's why the urgency is about getting volunteers in the EMS that are willing to do these kinds of extensive trainings that are necessary in order to get qualified to be able to perform these kind of services. It's
Also add here, Jim, I had a conversation earlier in the year with Jack Tilburg about this budget. I don't know, it was question that I had. And he had mentioned to me, and it just has stuck with me, that often when these volunteers go out on a call, they will have ruined their clothing. Just how it happens. And so I think we should have a clothing allowance line on here and maybe go back to Jack.
I think we do.
I didn't see it.
There's clothing, but I know I do vouchers for it.
Is it miscellaneous?
Could be.
Yeah.
I'll check, but I know we do.
He was, okay.
Yeah.
BJ, just real quick on this subject, because I'm not sure they're going to, a couple of years ago, we discussed the possibility of charging for ambulance calls if insurance companies picked it up.
Right.
And then, but in talking with the officers of they felt that would drastically hurt their fundraising if we went that route.
Yeah.
And it would people on Shelter Island are very generous to the ambulance group, and we don't want to.
How does that get used? Can you give me a quick?
That gets used for new ambulances.
Yep.
New high equipment that's very sophisticated that
Right.
is required.
So we don't have a big capital.
No, and to be very honest with you, if it wasn't for those contributions, those major donors and everybody else that throws in other donations, like this budget would be out of,
Oh, yeah.
it would be a lot more significant. The people on Shelter Island have been very, very generous in supporting EMS, as they should be. It's an investment, your life is at stake. It's something that you definitely want to make sure that all the departments, that EMS is something that you definitely want to make sure you do a good job covering.
To further answer your question, BJ, if you look at the EMS equipment line, the 2022 adopted budget was 10,000. You can see the modified budget was 318,000. So we get in the donation from the foundation, we increase our revenues, we increase the expense line, and then we can spend for purchase.
So that's an estimate of how much that means.
Yes.
And
Yes.
those vehicles now are
$300,000.
very expensive.
The revenues to date are
Oh, I see.
116, almost $117,000.
Wow.
Okay, so that's EMS. There is an increase in the building maintenance. I think we have to expand the front of the building slightly to accommodate the larger ambulances.
Okay.
Something else major there. Next is the medical center. Again, this is pretty much the same as it's been. Dr. Potter is our official town doctor. He got 4% in from him. Highway superintendent, put in 4%, personal services. This is with 4% because this isn't part of the bargaining unit. Then the equipment stays the same, and the only increase on the bottom is, there's the increase on
There's a.
the, so just the increase on the top, right, okay.
I will point out in the medical center, electricity and fuel and those kinds of coverages, that's all factored into the rent
Right.
of the building.
Mhm.
That's all covered through the hospital.
Yep. Okay, waterway, street lighting stays the same. Waterways, again, this is something that we changed up when we lost Sharon Jacobson to retirement. We used to have it that we took money from the WMAC to pay for the clerks because they did, all the work for the WMAC. But I going over it, figuring that Amber and I discussing it, we're gonna, the clerk is gonna continue to be paid that, and Dorothy will get a portion of that. But the other stipend, or not stipends, the money for the 3 deputy clerks will come from the deputy clerk's budget, not from the waterways. So this money's going back to the waterways fund. Okay. Town board, other items, everything stays the same there. Nutrition, same percent, 4% for all the help. Let's see. Significant food and appliances, food went up, the cost of food's going up. It went from 26,000 to 31,400 is the proposal. Okay, residential repair, going up on that, let me see. The residential repair is a 4% increase also for the help. Also putting in a significant increase for equipment. We have 3 very capable people working the program now, and they're doing, a lot more work. We took one of the old ambulances and converted it to a work truck for them so they can use it. So we're going with equipment from 200 to 1,000. Supplies, we're going from 350 to 750. So we're kind of beefing up what we can do for the senior residential repair program.
That's kind of critical for those seniors that are living on very, very tight incomes, that a lot of it is safety issues in the
Yes.
homes, that they're trying to rectify with smoke detectors and banisters and rugs and different types of things. Yeah.
Okay, Silver Circle, again, the top is all personal services at 4%. Bottom pretty much stays the same. We know what it costs to run that program, and we try to stick to those numbers. Senior Center, again, the top is the personal services at 4%. Equipment's gonna stay the same, and pretty much everything on the bottom is gonna stay the same. Recreation. Same thing, on the top, we have 4% increase for personal services. Emily Kraus is eligible for longevity this year. Bid equipment, we're keeping the same. Everything else, we're keeping the same. Each lifeguards, we're keeping the same.
Yeah, we upped it last time.
We upped it last time. We had a full complement, and we still
Yeah, I
got a
think
little,
eight
yeah.
lifeguards,
Yeah.
that we needed.
Oh, so here, I have on the bottom and highlighted Youth Waterman Program. Now, this isn't defined what it is, and we're budgeting 25,000 because we got a $25,000 donation. So it's gonna be water related, water recreation related. I think this is with the people that run the
Paddleboard race.
paddleboard around Shelter Island race, and they're gonna work with Bethany and Emily to come up with a program. Very generous donation. Okay, Youth Center is next. Same thing, 4% increase for everyone. Trying to see if fuel, oil, and heat we're going up on. Everything else is pretty much staying the same. There. Town board other items is our contract with the Historical Society, $15,000. Keep that. Community Housing Board. Again, this is, we're beefing up some of this because of everything that's going on with it. The clerk salary, we increased significantly because right now it's two committees. It will go back to one committee, but, we anticipate, a lot more work there. Consulting, we're proposing we go from $2,500. We modified the budget to $16,700. So I'm going with that. I'm going to propose what we modified the budget to. Legal services and advertising stay the same. Landfill, again, personal services. The only increases we'll show are people that are in the bargaining unit. The rest will have in contingency to meet those expenses. Equipment stays the same. Everything else pretty much stays the same. We're going down on solid waste carting fees. And we kind of over budgeted a little last year, and he feels this is a much truer number. So we came down almost $23,000 there. Same with mostly the carting fees, the hazardous waste carting fees, we're going from 60 to 50. We're increasing the concrete going out, but what, it cost us to dump it. 12,000, we're $2,500, we're increasing that. We're increasing the purchase of bags simply because of the cost of the bags. We're increasing our environmental testing because we've been noticed that the landfill's going to be doing a lot more testing there than there has been in the past. We're dropping, again, the price for the hauling of the C&D from 138 to 115. And that's it there. Taylor's Island pretty much is staying exactly where it is. A little bit increase for the clerk. The Smith, we have Smith Cavern repairs. We had budgeted 1,400 last year, but we encumbered money for a modified budget of 16,400. So what we're putting in for is 11,500 for Smith Cabin repairs. Then we had budgeted 12,000 for the shed. That project is done. So I'm bringing that down to 2,000.
Just a quick question here. Are these expenses from the highway department, from the public works department that they bill?
Oh, no, some like the shit, some things we contract out.
So this is
Yeah.
outside, not interdepartmental, okay.
Right. Okay, piping pullovers stays the same. Shellfish seating, I propose we increase that from 10,000, which has been for a number of years, to 12,500. That's in addition to the 70,000 oysters we got, with the seating that
Yeah.
we were given. That's a nice give. Okay, 23A benefits. This is retirement, police retirement, LoSAP, social security, blah, blah, blah. It's an increase of about 1%, about a little over $100,000. These are based on what we get from the agencies telling us what they expect it to be.
Just out of curiosity, I'm sure it's later on in this, that charge that we're charged annually for the,
That's somewhere in here.
it's somewhere in here,
Yeah.
okay, all right, I just want to make sure,
That comes from the WQI money.
Yeah,
okay, all right, okay.
right. Okay, next is capital projects. Last year, we transferred $163,000. And this year, we're proposing 275.
Yeah.
I'll write that down.
There's another page.
Okay,
This is just so it gets funded via the
right,
budget, but then the capital
okay.
projects
Is
is a
this
different.
mostly going to the police department, ADA stuff?
It's a number of things.
A number of
Yeah,
things, okay,
yeah.
all right, okay.
Okay, all right, so next the revenues. I'm not going to go through the revenues quickly. There are a few increases. A lot of it has to do with raising fees for the building permits, fees at the landfill. Dottie saw an increase in fees for parking. The automatic parking thing is working very well, so we're increasing that $5,000 from 90,000 to 95,000. Okay. Justice court revenues will keep the same. Landfill revenues, we see a slight increase, from 854 to 866. Medical center revenues are pretty much the same. Nutrition revenues are about the same. Residential repair is up because, again, that program's getting more robust, so there's more donations to that one. Senior center review revenue, pretty much the same. Silver Circle, the same. Police revenue, the same. Recreation revenue is a significant increase here, mostly because of the 25,000 donation, but also we're seeing a little bit of an increase in getting some of our fit memberships back. With COVID, we had slowed down a little bit. We're starting to see that come back again. Okay, so that's the A fund. The B fund. Okay, first thing, you see committee clerk, and we have nothing there. What we did was we created the position last year, the committee clerk, and we took it from each department, and it was just very confusing. So rather than try to, transfer the money from one to the other, we just keep it in each department, and they can, they'll pay it out that way. MTA tax stays the same. The B fund contingent, we adopted 10,000, we modified it to 45,600. So the proposal is just under $14,000 there. Contractor license review, again, 4% increase for the clerk. The other numbers stay the same. Building department. Okay, building department, again, a 4% increase. We took out.
Building inspector came
We
out.
took out the building inspector there and put him in zoning, because he really is a zoning officer more than a building inspector. The other salaries are what they are. It's a 4% increase. Again, I'm putting in for equipment. We went from 28 to, they had asked for 5,000. I'm proposing 4,000. They need a new printer, a large scale printer. So that budgeted for a new car, both here and in code enforcement. That car will be shared with the assessor's office.
I think we have an underused printer upstairs that can go over there. We should talk about that.
Association of Towns, again, that's going to the department. Everything else is, in contracts are going up $1,000 based on what we've been told. So that's that. Fire marshal is a 4% increase. Fire warden stays the same. Our register of vital statistics stays the same. Zoning department is, again, same as the building. It's all 4%, except we put the entire salary for Michael DeSanctis here, the code enforcement officer. Zoning Board of Appeals, this site went up a little bit more. This I did a 6% increase. Again, these are, basically they're volunteers, but it's becoming a much more involved position. So it's really a token, but I proposed a 6% increase as opposed to a 4% for the chairman and for the 4 members. 2% for the clerk, 4% for the clerk, and see on the bottom there. The expenses, the other expenses, the only increase there is the training, going from 2,000 to 3,000. Again, because we're starting to see a lot more involved processes going on, or projects that we need to make sure are up to date legally. Same with the planning board, I went 6% on that, and increase for the clerk. Equipment, the same. Training again, up $1,000. And we're increasing the professional services from 20,000 to 30,000. And part of that is because the planning board, we hope, is going to be taking over the waterways, wetlands applications. So it's going to be more involvement on their end, and we might need some outside help with some of those consultants. Water Advisory Committee, again, same thing, we're going up with the clerk salary. Here we are changing, we didn't budget last year for water level monitoring. So meeting with Peter Grant, we are budgeting for that, but we're taking away from the water quality testing. I have to look at my notes and find out why we're doing that, but he had a reason why we're moving the money. Comprehensive plan, again, increase the clerk's payment, that's more than 4%. Doing that based on the hours involved in doing the work. And we're keeping everything else the same. Professional services, we budgeted 45,000. We still have that 45,000, so I'm budgeting another 45,000, so we can encumber that money and then have more when we're ready to bring a consultant in. The CAC, again, 4% for the clerk. Everything else stays the same. Benefits, based on what we've been told, it's an increase of just about $35,000. Then the revenues, a significant increase here is building permits. We had raised all the permit fees, so we're anticipating a $100,000 increase there. Unclassified revenue going from 25,000 to 10,000. Apparently, that's not a moneymaker anymore.
Really?
Zoning board revenue stays the same. Planning board revenue stays the same. Rebates from the state, we have the electric car rebate we're eligible for, and a special exception rate, $500. I mean, this year we got 11,000 from that special exception application fee, but I don't want to take a chance, so we'll just keep it at 500. Okay.
Those recharging stations next to police headquarters, are we going to think about putting some type of metering on that?
Well, there is metering on it. We can do that now, and we don't even have to do it, Jim.
Credit card.
Right now, you use a credit card, but you don't get billed for it. But I think by the end of the year, that changes, that you need your credit card to use it, and you will get billed for it. It's not like we have to get involved in it.
Yeah, it'll be no cost to us.
Okay.
Okay, EA is mechanics. These are all the, thanks for the highway department. Again, salary, we're holding. And this is all, bargaining, so there's nobody here that we'd have to address right now, so that we're holding contingent. Equipment, we're keeping the same. Fuel, we're going from 33,000 to 48,000. Machine repairs, we're keeping the same. Oil, fluid, and grease, we're going up 2,000. Everything else stays the same. Brush and weeds, again, this is the bulk of the highway crew. Personal services is showing as the same. All the other items related to personal services, outside contractors, we're keeping the same. Everything else, we're keeping the same there. So we're keeping the same as it's been. Then the benefits go from 473 to 500,000. And again, that's based on what we're told our costs will be. Our revenues are going from, we proposed 21,000, we adopted 21,000 last year. We modified it to 30, and Brian feels we should have 41,000 as his number to close for this year. Okay. Next is roads, DB. EA and DB have to do with the town and the village and certain things you do charge and don't charge. Personal services, again, same thing and all that. Showing that we're the same as it was, but we have money. So when I say we're keeping it the same, but we're putting the money in contingent, so we're budgeting for the increase. It's not like, oh, we're gonna settle a contract, then we're gonna have to increase the budget. The money's there. It's just a matter of. Same with fuel, going from 45,000 to 64,000. The other significant one, PEP dues. Why are we taking that out of here? Do we move it?
Up dues?
49 out of 55.
Yeah, I couldn't. Because it does,
WQI, we said we're gonna take.
yeah, which is, that's
Okay.
part of like.
That's where it should be,
It's a
yeah.
little bit more than
Things.
6,000, I think.
All right,
It's 7 and change.
well, this is last year,
Yep.
so we'll look when we get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, CHIPS contractual, we went down a little bit. Sometimes we can anticipate, so we went from 174 to 159.
Just out of curiosity, what people always ask about roads. So the roads are paid through operational budgets, CHIPS, and grants. You know, that's been the winning combination of maintaining our roads. Lately, we haven't seen a lot of grant monies coming in. CHIPS really is pretty consistent at this $160,000 range. The operational budget, do we have any money set aside for roads?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's the
132.
highway improvements,
The highway improvement?
132,600.
132.
Plus we encumber money,
Okay.
usually.
And did we find out from Brian Sherman on the money that was way back, probably 10, 15 years ago from the state? Remember that money?
Yes, he couldn't add to it, and he can get that money,
He can
but
get
it's not
that
gonna,
money.
yeah.
He was looking to bump that up significantly,
Right.
but it's still a bit of change.
Right.
Okay. That's a road.
And then you'll see a lot of we encumber a lot of that money, because usually he's using behind, so we always encumber, like, budgeted 132, we encumbered 205, and we still have 197 in the,
So somewhere along the line, I'm hoping by the Thanksgiving time, or maybe shortly thereafter, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we have a capital plan. Somebody's asked about that. An actual capital plan done, I think you guys are asking for it, and that's a plan. And I said that would be the target date. We've been bogged down with a lot of other things. But yeah, that capital plan, we have to really start thinking seriously about mitigation measures for these roads that flood all the time. So, if there's engineering costs involved in that in terms of road elevations, again, we don't do them all in 1 year. We do them over the course of 5 to 10 years, but we have 5 or 6 major roads that need to be elevated for lots of reasons.
Jim, to answer your question, if we go to DB revenues, we had budgeted 167,000 in paving grants last year.
Okay.
We still haven't spent it. That means we have that money, but that program is gone, so we're not budgeting for that this year.
Okay.
But we are getting two new ones. One is paved New York. We're getting 42,180.
Okay.
And another is,
What page are you on there?
this is page 51 and 55.
52.
Then the other one is the extreme winter recovery, $35,960. So we lost 167, where we recouped 78, so half of it. Okay, then you want to walk us through the capital?
Yes.
Because it's too small, I can't read.
Yeah, it is hard to see the capital. Christina. What we've got is, it is really. The 275 is a fund, capital improvement. So we've got ADA compliance. We last year had put in 50,000 to get the ADA report
Started, right.
So we could find out what we need to do. Instead of going, we were anticipating starting that project, but it makes more sense for us to spend 50,000 this year during design consulting, to get Justice Hall done. So that way we have both those projects. So as we move forward and do actual projects themselves, we have a little bit of economies of scale by doing both projects.
That is a major thing. I think the capital planning committee really endorsed that. So we have two old buildings side by side, both late 1930 vintage, both need the same requirements for ADA. So we did 50,000 this year, 50,000 next year. Hopefully we'll be able to have a nice ADA plan for both buildings. And we put that out to bid. Hopefully we'll get a better price to be able to take care of both buildings. Don't necessarily have to do them, simultaneously, but it would be, we'd probably get a better bang for the buck if we do it that way. So that's the thinking behind that, upgrading those two buildings and making them ADA compliant in terms of accessibility into the buildings and around the buildings. There are other ADA requirements inside the buildings that will be budgeted for down the road with with our ADA plan as that is developed.
The seniors have requested a carport structure for 20,000. EMS, as Jerry mentioned before, the garage expansion, 90,000 for that. There's also a power lift stretcher system. So that's in there for 30,000. We need to update the radios for both, for EMS, so there's 5,000 in there. And then also we have to upgrade the police radios to 800 megahertz to comply with and be able to speak with the county. So that's 40,000. So you'll notice that originally in the police budgets, what Chief Reed had put in was higher than what Jerry put in, but that's only because it got moved to this capital plan. So anything that's like a big one-time expenditure or something that might be done over a couple of years, it's now showing up here. We also need 2 new boat engines for the police boats.
We've been very fortunate with the boats that we get state grants for the boats and for the engines. So
And
we
he's
don't
still
know.
trying.
He's still trying,
He's
but
still trying to go that
again,
route.
it's capital, so we're
Yeah.
putting money away in case.
Should that be highlighted?
Should not be highlighted.
From WMAC?
From yeah, could be,
Could be.
yeah,
Depends on where we land with.
yeah.
The upgrade of the radio system is a must. That's something, we have no control over that because we have to go that route.
Yeah.
Fire department just did that.
Waterways monies, like I do have a spreadsheet on fund balance for that will go over. I need to adjust it based on input that just got back from the accountants this morning. But I just, and what Jerry's proposing for fees, and so he and I have been going back and forth because we disagree on how the funds are going, use of the funds and fees and stuff like that. So that's something for the entire board to work out, but so we have to figure out what we can pull out of waterways and what's being left in the fund balance. So, but that's a future discussion. And in the highway and the B fund, we also have payments for the Chevy 3500 truck, the Mack truck, and the loader. And you'll see the column that says financing, and actually I forgot to go back and put these and the rest of those where it's shaded. Right now, if it's coming from appropriations, that's an A, and that's money coming from the budget. You'll see for ADA compliance, we have A/G. Right now, that 50,000 is coming from appropriations, but we will Jen Maziano to try and get grant money, especially since there's usually more money out there for ADA type work. Anything else that we can get grants for, continue to work on that so that we don't have to use appropriated money, but right now, we don't know what the answer is, so it has to be.
And the two Kenworth trucks, are they done?
Yes.
So it was 53,000 and 51,000. Those payments are done.
Yes. And so you'll see A, and then there's also R, that's money coming from reserve. So originally, a number of years ago, Jay Card had set up, like, here's what we have in the equipment reserve fund and how we're going to utilize it, how we're going to fund it, and how we're going to utilize it to pay for some things. So we're still taking money out of reserves for a couple of those payments. So that's what the R is. So even though the highway is spending 97,530 on capital items, 86,950 is coming from reserve monies, as we had anticipated, like, the earlier schedule. So we're only taking 2,580 appropriation.
You did a good job with that.
And-
That's Condon Creek dock, as you go back up there where it says $68,000 in small print. Is that we're talking about the bulkhead or the dock?
Yeah, we budgeted the bulkhead.
It's the
We
bulkhead.
budgeted that, yeah, last year. That money's there.
Yeah, that's in the 2022, and if we don't end up getting that project finished this year, we will.
Carry that over?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is, something the town board decided that we needed to do. Jay started it with the highway department, just to put money away for these projects. Instead of talking about it and then say, okay, now where are we gonna get the money from? So we're putting money away for each of these projects.
Yeah, that would be something that got pushed back several times because of other bulkheads that failed, Dawn Lane and a few others. So this is next on the list. I'm hoping that we can get on this one.
Great. That's it. So what I'll ask the town board to do is review this, make your notes. Obviously, we meet with the police department and the highway department because those are the two biggest budgets. But let me know who else we want to talk to. I think we'll bring the assessors in, and we'll see who else we want to talk with.
Yeah, and then I'll make sure that Shelby has resent this back to department heads so that
Yes.
if your initial pass, you
Right.
took something out of someone's
Yes, they can make their
department
case
pass,
for it.
Yeah, they can
Yep.
come back.
Okay. All right, with that done, we will go around the table.
What about the Rams Head Inn?
Oh, we'll do that next? Okay, Rams Head in dock discussion, Stephen and I are gonna recuse ourselves. The rest of the town board will discuss this, and then we'll come back to the meeting,
Okay,
okay?
give me 2 seconds.
Yes, Tim Hill, special counsel, is going to.
He is on sale.
Just gonna have a 2-minute.
Yes, we got 2 seconds review.
Yeah, it's I think we're doing a special meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do I have to?
what we just did was
2 seconds?
straight it up anyway.
Technically speaking.
On those 2 minutes? Yeah. Be at the end of
Quick and
that,
efficient, you know?
you know? FD.
For today, right?
Yeah.
I'm in water bottle here. Garfield, Simon and Garfield.
Just gonna put that by Jerry.
Yes, yeah, for when he returns. All right, so I think we can start.
Yeah, we can.
Yes, Tim is on, and he's.
Hi, Tim.
Okay, so just a reminder that Jerry and Stephen have to recuse themselves from this. We're discussing the Ram's Head Inn dock application, and since there is a lawsuit against the town, specifically, they are named personally in the lawsuit, they need to recuse themselves. Oh, sure, yes, sorry.
We need quiet out there.
Yeah. So that's why Jerry and Stephen have stepped away.
Should we recognize that two interested parties might not be here?
What do you mean?
Andrea and Mr. Kriegster.
Yeah.
Should we notify them? I don't know. I just want to give them opportunity. Tim?
Tim, did you speak to Mr. Kriegsman?
I did, and I thought I had seen them on the list of people that were on earlier.
She was earlier?
Want to give them the benefit of the doubt, a phone call or something, just.
Sure.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
I'll do that right now.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Tim, that's Tim Hill, that he's our, the attorney that we have standing in for Stephen, because Stephen had to recuse himself, so he's our counsel to the board for this particular application. But I think what we're doing is we are taking a look at whether or not we need to do, what type of a secret review we have to do. And so I'm going to let Meg take the lead on this, because you were like the one who kind of started pulling a lot of information together for all of us. So you're a little further ahead than that.
Yeah, so
Let's wait for Tim to come back
Okay.
Just give it a second.
and Mr. Kriegsman.
looking at this more as a chance to figure out exactly what questions we need answered from the applicant. So that's kind of the intention of the discussion.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess also we have consultants who, if we need to bring them in, this will help us to decide whether or not we need to hire someone.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Okay, so I just spoke to Mr. Kriegsman. He's watching, but is there a different link for him to have to appear and participate?
Yes, you'd have to zoom in.
Probably not going to invite participation, but I'm not sure.
Right, yes, yes.
Yeah, on the town website, there's a Zoom link on even just the town calendar. If he hovers over. Okay.
Okay.
Christina's going to email it to him.
Okay.
Even easier.
What about Andrea?
She was early on, she knows.
Yeah, she's aware, so.
And again, it's not going to be back and forth. It's us discussing
Right.
this, but we want them to be aware of any requests that we're going to be making of them for information. They can always watch it later.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be available. And this is kind of the first chance that we've all had to sit down and go over it, because last time it was presented, then BJ and Amber both went away for at least a week. So it was like, you got the application and then, life.
Yeah.
So this is the first opportunity we've had to really sit down and dig into the application all together. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
All right.
All right, Meg, I'll let you run with the ball.
All right. So I'm just going to go over like the first two things that I noticed in the application that I think we're going to have to request clarification on, is that the property that is submitting, or the applicant, is Ram's Head Inn LLC, but the property that they are submitting the application for is owned by Big Ram LLC. So I think that needs to be clarified before
It had, well,
we can approve the application in some fashion. So we need clarification on whether they're going to extinguish the easement or how that's going to happen.
The applicant in our code has to be the owner, and the applicant in this case, as far as we know, is not the owner. Is the really way of saying.
so it's not a valid
Right,
application.
so it's not valid, so we can go forward, but we could go forward with that in mind.
Right. And then the second thing that I noticed when looking at it is that the application to the DEC doesn't match the EAF mapper, which is one of the tools you use when filing or filling out the short form. So there were two errors that I noticed. One was that question number 7, is this a critical environmental area? It's always yes when you're on Shelter Island because we're part of the Peconic Bay. So no matter where you are on Shelter Island, if you do a DEC application, it's always yes for the answer. And the other one is question 15. Does the site of the proposed action contain any species of animal or associated habitats listed as threatened or endangered? And the answer to that is most of the time yes, because we have long-eared bat, piping plover, and least tern. So that answer should be yes here as well.
So that requires resubmission to the
The DEC because it's incorrect, I would think.
Again, now this is the second reason why us, we can go ahead with this exercise that we're doing today, but it sort of prohibits further action by the board until those two items are cleared up to our satisfaction.
And then just the other thing I noticed was number 10, will the proposed action connect to an existing public or private water supply? The application says yes, but on the actual design plans and application, there's no mention of water running to the dock. So that was just another question mark I had.
Right.
So.
Because if you run water to the dock there, it'll be a bit of disturbance to the hillside, although from a previous sort of public hearing, I think it was mentioned that there is a well just up the hill, but I'm just saying that would impact what kind of disturbance is going to happen.
Not necessarily have to disturb. They would run it externally on the underside of the ramp and the dock.
Right.
It's just that that's just something I noticed as a discrepancy. It's on the DEC application, but it's not on the actual dock application that we received. So those were just the first things I noted. So with those things in mind, what do you guys think? Do you want to go through the full practice and see what we come up with, like what questions we have for them?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, because none of this, it doesn't have to happen in a linear manner. If it all happened sort of simultaneously, it would be to the applicant's advantage that it's all moving forward on separate tracks, but moving forward.
Well, and I mean, with the application to the DEC, I think even if those changes are made, it's still going to be approved by the DEC. It's a standard. I mean, I don't see that as being a
Deal breaker.
exactly.
yeah.
Right,
But at least we're doing our part to help keep things moving forward by continuing.
okay.
We just can't act.
Right. So what we're going to do just to help kind of clarify and get questions answered is go through the part two of the short environmental assessment form. Because that, I find when you review that, it really helps figure out what questions you have and get clarification and see what you're truly understanding in the application and what you're not. And so the first question that's posed is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation?
So I looked into this, over the weekend, as I mentioned to you. And land use is the key word here that I got a little hung up on. However, the property is in a residential zone. The use, take the word land out, the use is to support a commercial operation. Now, again, commercial is problematic, right, with our code, because we define commercial dock in a way that this doesn't fit.
Right.
This does not fit that. So we're sort of at a little bit of a loss here in terms of our definitions. And that being said, what I'd like to sort of just point out to you guys, what I came up with is the prior use by the prior owners, a similar sized dock located on town land was used primarily by dinghies coming in from inn-owned moorings and from the anchorage and from Cockles Harbor Marina to a little bit, a certain extent, not a ton, but just basically a dinghy. It was used as a dinghy dock. Less common at that dock was to see the boats themselves, not their dinghies. And they're usually, again, this is just random observations since I've been here in the 1990s, that less frequent would be boat owners coming in, but smaller vessels, smaller and definitely smaller vessels than we've seen lately, and owner occupied, for lack of a better word, not commercial sort of boating. Again, the way this question is phrased, we know what they're referring to, and this is a little bit off to the side, the way that I've been thinking about it.
Right. Because I look at it and I'm looking at a dock application. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying it's an existing dock under Town Code Chapter 53-12A, because it's been in existence prior to the adoption of the dock code. It's been maintained and kind of in place up to this point. So I look at it as an existing dock.
And you're not at all using the usage from the dock that was previously used. You're just going with the Bennett dock, as we call it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm like looking at it that way. And then, by rebuilding the dock in place, you're essentially, once it's returned to the land on which it's built, then you're reducing that nonconformity of the neighboring property technically owning property on someone else's physical property.
And I would argue increasing the nonconformity by use. That's such a thing.
I think you're transferring the use from one dock to another.
From the dock on the causeway to.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it as a change in use because a dock is a dock.
A dock is a dock until you have a lot of commercial, until you have increased amount of boating there above a residential dock. So again, we can't, according to our code, we can't call it commercial dock because it's not, but it's going to be utilized in a way that is somewhere between commercial and residential. It's somewhere in here in this.
It's hybrid.
It's hybrid.
Right.
So do we consider it in that case? I mean, this is an environmental review, which is supposed to.
Well, I think what you'd have to look at is the degree of change between the previous dock usage and how this dock would be used. Not necessarily that all of a sudden it's being used commercially. No, it's always been used commercially.
Right.
But is there a percentage of increase of use that we need to think about?
Expansion or.
I wouldn't call it an expansion. I would think it's a natural growth of a business.
Yeah, which is.
So it depends.
Okay, to me,
Right.
How are we going to, expansion versus growth? Let me just add one more thing, if I could, to this question. The DEC in the workbook cautions or advises you to use your comprehensive plan in this case, in answering these questions, especially when it comes to use, character, aesthetic, what I would call the soft, touchy-feely aspects, as opposed to the harder environmental, oh yeah, this is going to kill some piping plovers, we can't do it. That to me is a hard fact. This is softer, and so that's where the comprehensive plan maybe should be used. So we have a 1994 comprehensive plan, and in economic development, this is a bit long, and I'm sorry, but I do think it's valid, and it's relevant not only to this question, but to questions further on. Okay, Shelter Island has long served transient tourists, but always as a minor activity relative to the major summer resident dominance. Currently, on a summer day, this is 1994, about 10% of the people on the island are there for the day only. A little over half are staying in summer houses, and just under 40% are people who live there year-round, a far different profile than that of many sometimes compared island communities. It is critical that economic development recognize and support that balance, which is central to maintaining the quality of life here, which in turn is central to continued success for the island economy. So then it goes on to say, ensure that new and continued business development occur in keeping with the particular environmental and fragile resource base of the island. Attention should be paid to, and then I took out, because there's a bunch of ... Attention should be paid to neighborhood compatibility, traffic, and parking issues, among others. So I just think that attention should be, I gave you the little bit of background of what we're trying to balance here, the different interests, and attention should be paid to neighborhood compatibility, traffic. So again, that's talking about traffic on a, we know what it means there. It means, highway, road traffic, but this is boat traffic, so, and neighborhood compatibility. So in talking about question one, thinking about question one, I think that would be a worthy thought to have in the back of our heads.
I just wonder on a, this is in short environmental assessment form. When are we starting to tip into what would really fall under site plan review and special permit and change of use?
Right.
So I'm
It's not
trying
a change, though.
Yeah, so I'm trying to balance how we should be looking at this.
Right.
Like what's our governing purpose and surrounding legislation?
Yeah, and yeah.
It's, I don't know if I have the right, fully formed answer in my head.
Yeah, and I think this exercise sort of helps us. What is environmental impact? I mean, so this exercise sort of, and I point these things out, and then the next part of the question is, okay, so there's an impact. Is it small? In which case we can ignore these, sort of problems questions that I've raised, potential problems, or is it a moderate to large impact, in which case we can't ignore it? We'd have to go on to a part 3, which would be a more thorough.
Well, I think you have to take into account the fact that our just waterways traffic overall has increased.
Truth.
So I don't necessarily think that it's just the fact that this business is here, that they've had increased traffic. I think all of our waterways have seen increased traffic in the last 3 to 4 years.
Yes.
So, taking that into account, I don't know that it is a significant change from previous years.
Right.
Just because it's happened everywhere. It's been across the board that we've had an increase. So I don't know that you can say that it's this dock specifically.
Right.
In this area that's causing the increase.
Right. And then, and I agree with you, but so looking back to Crescent Beach, looking back to when, when was that originally? Is it 22 years, something like that? Has that change has been happening? Mm-hmm. So increased boat traffic has happened in that time, I agree, just generally.
Right.
But increased boat traffic there at that level we've seen there is due to the establishment. Right. That operates there. So, again, we don't have the crystal ball.
Yeah.
We don't.
But at the same time, this establishment's always had a dock.
Yes.
It's a very different situation for Sunset.
Right. And if it was to blow up, it would have. Maybe it's what you're saying, blow up.
Limited. It's already limited by its location, by its size, by what's there. They can't expand beyond what they currently have.
True.
So that's a limiting factor.
Yeah.
Sunset Beach, you have the entire beach.
Right.
Now you have shuttles, you have access for seaplanes, you have all of these things that you don't have at this application's location.
Right. Right.
I think we went into this process with the idea of 3 things. Number one, that this old bedded dock, which is now on the easement, needs to be taken care of. That easement question, in my mind, is the first step of transferring that easement over to the Ram's Head Inn property per se. So that'd be step number 1. Step number 2 is that that when we granted the 8 commercial moorings out there, we had a concept of how those 8 commercial moorings were going to be used with a launch, bringing people in from those 8 commercial moorings. We also recognized the fact with the meeting that we had in the spring with all parties concerned out there, that we occasionally would have boat traffic come into the dock itself to drop people off, and that they would go to an anchorage area or go out to one of the commercial moorings that would just drop the people off. We were concerned about the size of boats, the amount of traffic coming into that area, et cetera. I think that's one of the reasons why they went with the Bennett dock as opposed to the proposed dock in front of the gazebo to move it away from the swimming area, the beach area. My biggest concern was that what might happen in the future. Again, if you had a crystal ball, that would be great, but we don't have a crystal ball. So when we approve this dock, if we get to that point where we get in judgment where we can approve this dock, that it would be approved with certain restrictions, certain mitigations and certain, limitations to the dock. And would have to be, for me to vote yes on that dock, ultimately it would be based on reasonable, fair-minded things, again, that we've discussed in the past. That's kind of where, I'm kind of at. The other gnawing question is about the size of the floats that are out there. And I've been told that the summer of 2022, those floats that are out there are the same square footage. And I think that, I don't know whether it's the same square footage that was on the original Causeway dock or was on the original Bennett dock. I think it's something in between. So that, to me, has to be, and why was there a need to increase the square footage of the dock? That is a question that I've asked. What would be the rationale? Is it safety reasons? Is it to bring more additional boats in at the same time? What would be the rationale of why you would have to increase that? The number one thing I'm always concerned about is safety. I would like to think that we're fair-minded in terms of working with a new owner, a relatively new owner on supporting the business, but on the same token, working with the homeowners and the people that value Cockles Harbor the way they do, and being fair-minded and coming up with reasonable expectations of what we expect out of this dock. So, again, I would love this thing to be solved sooner rather than later, so that we're not getting to the late winter, early spring of 2023 with this unresolved issue and have to face another summer of this. I would like to see us, do everything we possibly can to expedite and work with the process. And I think the value of having this meeting right now is to identify those areas that need to be addressed sooner rather than later. To me, the number one thing is the easement question. Let's get that easement thing done. And the last thing I said is the secret, whether we should or should not conduct an evaluation there is, again, I'm open-minded to that. I think the board wants to do the right thing. If it's required, then we do it. If it's not required, then we do not do it. I need to be convinced whether that is a requirement or not a requirement. I don't have not looking for additional hurdles to throw in front of people, but on the same token, going back to my original comment, I want to do it in the right way. It is contentious. Let's be fair-minded. Let's do it the right way and protect all parties.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the first two things that you mentioned, name, application, actually, there's that third thing, which you just jogged my memory. The third thing is, mentioned at the public hearing, was should we grant this dock, and should the litigation, then we are left with 2 docks.
Yeah.
That we have to at least keep
I think
that.
just make a clause in the approval that you are only allowed 1 dock per property,
Right.
as town code stipulates.
And I would go on public record right now, as all the parties that were present out there that day, and there were 7 or 8 of us, 4 people from the board, that our town attorney, Andrea was present, Joe Fenora was present. We had a nice discussion out there, that it was very clear in my mind that if this dock, whether it was the one in front of the gazebo or whether it was the Bennett dock, we needed but one dock. That there was not going to be the requirement of using that second dock over at the causeway, which is obviously on town property. So before I would ever give my stamp of approval and the final analysis on this dock, it would have to be with the idea that that dock is no longer. That is clear in my mind. We're not going from one dock to two docks. We can work with people but that's not going to happen.
Well, then I have a question for our attorney, Tim Pell. Is there a possibility with this litigation, if we were to grant this dock, that the judge would come back and say, no, the dock is going to Andrea Carter's company, and therefore the judge could say, I'm allowing two docks. Is that a possibility?
No, there's no land use question before the judge. That case concerns the title ownership of the harbor dock. So I don't think you wouldn't be putting the judge in a position of rendering a decision that bound the board with respect to whether or not two docks are permissible or not. I should say that, I think on the easement issue, I did have some discussion with the applicant's counsel, and there is some clarification there. I don't mean to misstate it, and I don't mean to open this up into a open hearing if that's not the town's practice, although I do see Mr. Kriegsman is on the line. But I believe the representation is that the landing of the dock is on Ram's Head Inn property, and that the easement runs from the adjacent property to that, and that would be extinguished to cease that property's accessing of the dock, not the other way around, not that the dock is landing on the easement property. So if I've stated that correctly, that was an explanation that was provided to me.
But because of the way the easement is, we understand if the Bennett property was still owned by the Bennett family, the Ram's Head Inn could not submit this application. I think it's that simple in my mind. It just happens to be owned by the same person, but there's still a separation there. Yeah.
We don't know that even
for
fact.
We don't know that because LLCs, right. So.
And just to reinforce that meeting in the spring, which was an important meeting, a lot was said. The one major thing about the Causeway dock was safety. Having customers move a fairly good, several, maybe at 800 feet to 1,000 feet on open road during sunset, when time's setting right over there, or at night.
No shoulder.
No shoulder on the road, coming down a hill, cut a little blindsided there. Safety was an issue. So that was a major consideration about why forget where the Causeway dock was located. But it was a safety issue that they were also very concerned about, and that's why they were applying for this new dock either in front of the gazebo or, ultimately now with the old Bennett dock. That was reiterated over and over and over again. It wasn't a good situation, where it was located there.
All right, so getting back to, we're not entertaining questions from the audience. Sorry, for session. Okay, so getting back to the part 2 page, I guess. Right. We've got a couple of us who are leaning towards no, no or small impact may occur.
Yeah,
I'm in the no to small impact. In the dock itself, the fixed dock is only 85 feet, which is shorter than the neighboring docks in the area. And then even with the float, it brings it to 120, which is still shorter than some of the docks in the area. So, I don't see the dock itself as being in a position. I understand there's use questions, but I think those questions we need to clarify with the applicant. We need to make a list of questions for them to help us clarify what the usage will be.
Right. And that's one way of going about it, just to say we could answer yes. and say that these are, we've answered yes, and these impacts could be mitigated by the applicant in further discussion. So, yeah.
I don't think it's significant enough to warrant. That's my opinion. All right, so the second question, should I?
Well, Jim, I was just curious,
So,
where are you coming
I
out
would
on the
lean that
answer?
way also.
To the moderate to large?
No,
No.
small.
No, small.
Okay. All right.
The second question is, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of the land? So this is really more to what BJ was saying earlier. So, the previous question was more about, zoning regulations, and it pre-exists zoning. We just know that about that structure. So this is more about intensity of land use. And so some of the sub-questions that are provided are there similar land uses in the surrounding area, or will the project introduce a new land use that does not currently exist? It's a dock, so yes, there are similar land uses in the surrounding area. It's not a new introduction because it's a pre-existing dock. It's already there. And it's going to be, the proposed dock is the same size as the existing dock. The floats are the only thing that are changing, and even that change is not overly significant because it's the same size as the floats previously used on the other dock that would be eliminated. That's my take on that.
I'd agree with all of that, except for the one fact that it's why it's hybrid. If you compare it to any other private dock in the area, it may be shorter, the same length as, and all that, but the frequency of people, the use of the dock is obviously increased dramatically, because you have people coming, there are very few people, unless you're having a party at your place, and you're that particular day, but this is constant use during the high season of people, using that dock,
What was the number, Jim? I remember a number that the owner had spoken.
Well,
So in terms of, the number of
the number
diners
was
she expected
4.5 per boat times 8, which was, it was 32 plus
for the moorings.
plus the half, so I think what Andrea was asking for initially with the use of those 8 commercial moorings, if I want to, in fact, encourage people, a lot of people do this now, they come by via boat, they don't come by car, they're coming from off island via the boat, they want to be able to park their boat, we take the launch, bring it out, be able to take those 4.5 people on the average, bring them in, have dinner for a couple hours, enjoy the stay, and then bring them back to their boat and they go home. So that was important to her, and I remember the number of 36 people additionally, and it could be 2 settings, so it could be more than that. It could be an early setting and a later group, so it could be as many as 60 or 70 extra people coming to dinner on a single evening by using just those 8 commercial moorings. We never discussed anything about boats being parked on the dock itself. When we were talking about this concept of increasing people coming to the establishment, it was making use of those 8 commercial moorings, not putting the boats on the dock. That's what the launch was for. And again, I think it opened up a possibility if the 8 moorings were in use, a 9th or 10th or 11th boat came, that boat, if they could navigate in during the tide and come up to the dock and drop the people off, that captain would then take the boat out into an approved anchorage area with a phone, and when people finished with dinner, they would come back in and pick them up. So, that kind of thing. Or the service could take that person, the people that had dinner, and take them out to the boat, which, was not on the 8 commercial moorings, but in an approved anchorage area, and bring them back to the boat.
Right.
That's the concept that I remember vividly, when we discuss these 8 commercial moorings.
Change in the use and the intensity of use.
Right.
In the land. And so again, this is the same question, my intensity. I think I have this later in my notes, but I think it's good to mention this here. I actually think this launch is a net positive. The dinghy traffic could be with general increase in boating, dinghy traffic could be crazy here. People coming in from the anchorage, people, again, what's kind of always occurred at a much lower level, just because Shelter Island was at a slower level. The launch to me is an addition, is a positive in terms of impact on the area, in terms of safety, in terms of all those things. I mean, I just think that is not my question. Right. The question is larger boats at the dock.
That was the concern of the people in the neighborhood. That was a major concern, increased boat traffic in and around the dock area, coming in there with larger boats. And that's why when it came to float size, and the square footage out there of that float, was that to accommodate for safety reasons, or was that to accommodate larger boats? So when I talked to Jack Costello not long ago, and I shared that with you guys at that phone call, I said, you need to justify to the 5 members of the town board why, in fact, you need this, whether it's the same exact square footage, which I didn't think that it was exactly the same, slight increase, but not dramatic, but why the reconfiguration. Was the reconfiguration for safety reasons, or was it to accommodate additional boat traffic in, so several larger boats to come in to unload their passengers? I never got that response back, but that was a fair question on the part of the board, that I shared with all of you, and I never heard a response back from that.
One of the questions, just to say this, that again, you're able to look at here and answering question 2 on the part 1 is, will there be a traffic increase in traffic? But there we go. And part of me is like, I think yes, because that's the point of the application.
Yes.
I mean, I think
I have yes, and I said it did this summer, but it has in previous seasons as well. I think overall, we're getting an increase in traffic. Just in the areas in general, and, to the restaurant, yes, because it has new ownership, people are curious.
Right, true.
So, I think like all seasonal businesses, it'll depend on the season. People are going to have good seasons, people are going to have bad seasons. So I think it's going to fluctuate like all
everything on Shelter. Yeah.
Right? Like there were summers where Sunset was closed and there was like minimal boat traffic. So it's all very dependent on the season.
Yeah.
And the economy and a million other things.
Even fuel prices entered into boat traffic, because people, and you know that, going to, you thought nothing of going over to Connecticut or going up to Rhode Island, and now it was a significant change in terms of fuel price.
Right. And then there's like another sub-question, does the project involve selling or changing public park land? No. Let's see. And then I had that, will there be a higher level of noise or light generated is another one of the sub-questions. And I said, yeah, there's probably gonna be a small impact. It's limited to a small area, the dock, the mooring field, people pulling in, unloading, tying up, shuttle going back and forth to the anchorage area, but it only lasts for 4 months. It's not a year-round impediment, so there is time for it to be reversible. It's time for the ecosystem to kind of recover from it. And I think it can be addressed, some of that can be addressed with mitigation measures.
Yeah, the lighting especially.
The lighting all has to face down, things like that. And also, by using the shuttle, there are less big boats running back and forth. And then you can limit how many boats can dock at the dock and how they're allowed to dock. You're not supposed to throw an anchor unless you're in an anchorage area. So that can be a mitigating factor that's put into the approval, is that, you can't back your boat in.
No stern too.
You can't back your boat in and wing an anchor because that's not an anchorage area.
Right.
So that we can put in as a mitigating factor.
Okay. Okay, so the question, back to just the direct question, and what we're going to check here is, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
I had that it would be a small change because I'm averaging that. It's always been used to this degree, but there's going to be more. It's just, we've just gotten busier. So I do think there'll be an increase, but averaging out compared to the fact that it's always had that kind of business.
Right.
There's a definite increase in my mind.
I was thinking moderate.
Moderate, I would say moderate, yeah, it has to be at least moderate, in my eyes.
But we can, as you say, there's mitigations that we could.
That we should discuss as we go further. Question 3, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? You want to go on that, Mike, first? Want me to?
I mean, I just have that it's a 100-year-old business. It's been there forever. It's always had a dock. It's just, previous owners may have run the establishment differently over time, but there's always been a dock associated with the business. It won't change the visual character because the dock it already exists, it's there. And then neighboring docks are about the same size, so the visual character of the construction, I don't think will be a significant impact. You'll also hopefully be losing another dock in that area, so you'll be down a dock, down a whole set of floats. So I don't see that as being a negative when it comes to visual character. Like I said, the size is comparable to the size of 3 neighbors. I mean, the neighbor right next door has a 120-foot long fixed dock. So if they add floats, then, and then the one down is the same. The other one is 175 feet. So I don't see that as being that. I mean, I do think that.
Did you read that question one more time?
Yeah, will the proposed action impair the quality, the character or quality of the existing community?
Yeah, I would like to say I hope not, because, that's, again, being reasonable. Want to protect that community as much as it can, and also protect the interest of the business. That's why I think the restrictions and clearly, if we get to that point where we approve this dock, all of those factors have to be looked at carefully, because I don't want a lot of surprises going down. Again, I don't know if you had the crystal ball, you could predict exactly what's going to happen 10 years out from now, but we don't own one of those. Maybe we should budget for one, but.
I hear they're not reliable.
Yeah, they're probably not. But to the best of our ability, we need to be able to anticipate what types of things could happen in the future and try to minimize the impacts as much as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. And being fair. And again, walking that fine line and trying to be fair. But we do have to think about those things carefully in the final analysis.
I think there are a number of sub-questions to this, and the first sub-question was, will there be a change in the visual or architectural character of the broader landscape? So that was the part that I was answering, is I don't believe that changes necessarily with this. The next sub-question is, does it create a change in the nature and intensity of land use in the area? I do think it is a small increase in the usage of it. But I do also think you'll be taking away a dock. So there's that. And then the other sub-question is, will there be a change in the nature of housing in the area? No, it doesn't impact housing. And same thing for, is there going to be a need for more public service, such as park recreation facilities, police or fire protection? I don't think so. It'll be handled by existing services.
Oh, okay, because
Bay Constable is in there. I mean,
it might require more Bay Constable attention, just again, because of higher traffic
but it doesn't require an increase in service.
No, it might, yeah, it looks like it could be handled.
There's less visual, when it was over on the causeway dock, it was every time you drive by it, you drive right by it, you see what kind of activities there. This is kind of more secluded over in the corner of the property.
Yeah.
So it does change the positioning of where the dock is, and that is, it brings it a little closer to Big Ram in terms of neighborhood type of thing, as opposed to being out on a causeway, and a little bit more isolated, so to speak. So yes, it does have a little bit more impact on the people that live in that area in and around the inn. So obviously that's all the more reason why we're trying to be careful about, the limitations that we place there. We want to do right by everybody, if possible.
One of the sub-questions under here, or the advice, what are you looking at in the questions answered by the applicant in part 1? One of those questions that we should look at is question 5, which is permitted use under zoning. Is it a permitted use under zoning? Again, we have a problem here because we have the hybrid use. Did I pull that out of the air? I might have pulled it out of the air, but I think I haven't, I don't think I did.
No, I'm sure you found it. I probably missed it.
Well, it's the one thing that we have to think about. And
Consistent with zoning, consistent with comp plan. You know, again,
Yes.
you know,
You're going back up to question 1?
no, it's under question 3, the guidance in the workbook was, you know, look back at, yeah, part 1.
Right.
And
those two things, town code and the comprehensive plan.
Right.
This is just a for instance of why, as we move forward with both of those documents, particularly comprehensive plan, that this could be the sign of things, you know, to come in the future. So we need to anticipate that we need to address this.
But I also think it's important to take
The hybrid
into effect, well, the hybrid situation, but also the history of the building and the
Correct.
land and the use and the structure and everything like that. It predates all the zoning. I mean,
yeah,
you know, as a waterfront property, it kind of has a riparian right to a dock if it's feasible, you know, I mean, I think all those things have to be taken into consideration.
yeah. And, you know, so it put us kind of back to Jim's question of, you know, framed a little differently, which is why? You know, so, you know, why are we doing this? And, you know, it's because we want to make it more attractive for people to come by boat.
Right, which is.
And safer.
Yeah.
Not we, I mean the applicant.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, I think that's sort of, will it impair? Well, just phrase it differently for question 3. Will the action change the character of the existing community?
I think impairment and change are very different. Yes. You can change your hair or you can be impaired by a head injury.
No, that's true, but no, that's definitely true, but for some people, I'm not saying, but I think that we've had people come at the public hearing who are there, who, you know, in the neighborhood who say, this is fine. There's a change, it's fine. This is a boating community. I'm okay with increased boat traffic. I kind of like to watch them go by my house. I mean, so, yeah, there's change and, you know, so.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at the question, it's not, does it change, but does it negatively have some effect?
Yeah.
So, you know, not all change is totally negative. So, but
No, I'm old.
analysis, we're supposed to be looking at like.
Old people don't like change.
Yeah, so I was more with Meg on this question, no or small impact.
Okay. Jim?
Small impact, yeah. I just want to go on record saying that, you know, in all of these situations we have on the island, whether it's Sunset Beach or the Pridwin or any other place, any other establishment, forming a bond between the town, the establishment, and the immediate neighbors is important. We're all in this together. We're always trying to get a nice balance between trying to support a business, definitely supporting the people who live in and around the business, and doing what's right and striking that balance. And it's been successful. I'm not saying that Sunset Beach is perfect, but those annual meetings that we have every year have made that better operation, a safer operation. And we deal with that all the time. Now, whether it's, and even with the new restaurant, we're learning as parking is going to be an issue. So we're going to try to address that issue. So again, with local businesses, I think if we form a little bit better bond and work together in a spirit of working together for the best possible scenario between homeowners, the establishment, and the town board, that's the secret formula to success. You know, to make, you're not gonna make, it's an impossible world to make everybody happy, but you'll make a vast majority of the people, because you'll be reasonable about things. There'll be a balance here. The extremes, as we learn in anything, you're never gonna please. But again, we work with the same reasonable people in the middle, and I hope we can do the same thing in the spirit of that with this dock situation here.
So the fourth question is, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? So it's in the Peconic Bay environs. So it is in a critical environmental area. But it's just Peconic Bay. There are no additional areas. And the reason that the Peconic Bay and environs CEA was created was to protect public health, water, vegetation, and scenic beauty. So the question is, what impact does it have on that?
Right, they're designated for their unique characteristics. That's why it's called that. And, that includes important unique natural setting. For example, fish, wildlife habitat, vegetation, thinking eelgrass, open space, areas of important aesthetic or scenic qualities. I think the moving of the dock is good. It tucks it away. So, I mean, that's already, the idea of moving the operation, not the, because it's already there.
So, and Peconic Bay extends all the way from Riverhead all the way out past Orient.
Yeah.
And it includes that entire region. So it's not just isolated to this location. It's the entire Peconic Bay.
Yeah.
And so, part of the question is the water supply extensive? Is it in the aquifer? No, it's salt water. It's fed by the ocean. It's not, like fresh pond. It's not a small isolated location like that. Let's see, there's no landfill, there's no hazmat. It's not a wildlife corridor necessarily, it's not, just the only spit between industrial spaces, something like that.
We do recognize Cockles Harbor as being the premier harbor, I would think, on Shelter Island and maybe in the entire Peconics. That it does have tremendous value for shellfish.
It's quite healthy.
It is quite healthy. And that, it's just asking Amber, the place in Greenport, Claudio's, I can remember when this first started and everybody, it's going to become Claudio's. No way in hell, not with this town board, it's never going to come close to that.
Right.
And if it does, the things would have to change dramatically, that just can't happen.
Yeah.
Cockles Harbor is we have to recognize it as a natural resource, as a gift to Shelter Island. I think it is an amazing body of water. We want it to the best of our ability, right? Again, with normal expansion and more people owning boats and more people coming and going, I think we accommodate that kind of growth, but the right kind of growth, not the wrong kind of growth. And we will be very conscientious of this as we move forward. That's a concern that people have, and it's legitimate. I get it. Because, every once in a while, those starboats, when they go by up Peconic Avenue right off the water, you can't even hear the person. I'm in my backyard, a half mile from where that boat is. They should be illegal. I don't understand. It's like the car that revs up and down. Do you really have to make that kind of friggin' noise? Are you kidding me? It's just abusive.
Yeah.
It's so, again, we're going to be very careful about how we monitor Cockles Harbor. And with this application, again, being reasonable and trying to come with reasonable expectations.
When I looked at this, I also pulled up the seagrass management plan.
Right.
And most of the eelgrass beds are on the interior of Cockles Harbor. Correct. Between Little Ram and the mainland and that whole area where it's far more protected, which is also where we're doing the shellfish work and stuff like that. So the eelgrass isn't really in this area per se, so, I'm not so worried about that. And then it's more actually on the external of Big Ram, so in the open waters. So I did take that into consideration when I looked at this, because I wanted to make sure it wasn't in this area. So
yeah, because when I was looking at this, it was like, is it going to result in a reduction in the quantity of the resource or characteristic, which was the basis for the designation?
Right.
Okay. And the proposed action may result in a reduction in the quality of the resource or characteristic. So the use is going from one dock to a different dock. So
Right.
like,
it's a transfer.
yeah, it's not changing anything. And
Right.
So we're gonna check that off as no or small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would not check it off as no, because there is a difference between how the docks.
the question only has two choices.
It's
no or small impact is one column, and then moderate to large is the other.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Question 5.
Proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affecting existing infrastructure for mass transit. I just have to take this, I'm sorry, I've got to.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead, I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay. Existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway, that doesn't really apply in this situation.
Apply.
It doesn't apply.
I mean, there'll be probably a small increase in boat traffic, but I mean, it doesn't actually affect infrastructure in any fashion.
Right. When BJ comes back, we'll just circle back to see if she had a different.
Yeah.
That one.
Let's see.
So 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
I had no, because there's no power to the dock, but now I want to clarify, is there going to be power to the dock? And is there going to be water to the dock? But I would still say no.
I was going to
minimal.
say,
It's
I was going to say the
yes,
impact
negligible.
of, yeah, I was going to say the impact, even if there is.
it's non-existent.
Yeah. Will the proposed action impact existing A, public/private water supplies, and B, public/private wastewater treatment utilities?
No. No, it's a dock.
Exactly.
Will the proposed action impaired a character or quality of important historic, archaeologic, or aesthetic resources? No, I don't think so. So the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna. So some of the sub-questions, and maybe BJ can be here for this.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing there is the ramp going down, when the ramp is put in, that is taken into consideration, over the.
Yeah, well, the ramp will be elevated above, so
Right,
it'll mitigate.
okay, so
Okay. Okay, you had space, just checking. Okay.
So we went through questions
Yeah.
5 through 8, all no or a small
Okay.
impact. Did you have anything different?
Just back to 5, no, 6, 7, 8 maybe, but 5, question 8, back to part 1, question 8. The applicant answered no in terms of an increase, but it also does state in that application, the greater application, that increase in boat traffic includes people coming, being brought to eat at the restaurant, also utilizing the amenities of the inn, so it's not just restaurant, and also partake in water sports such as water skiing, again, according to the applicant. So I was just it resulted in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic. I just don't know if you now have water skiers out in the harbor, this dock is facilitating that. Maybe it's not necessary because you can water ski off a beach. No, so in other words, it's not necessarily direct. It doesn't, it's an impact, but it's not, in other words, if you didn't have a dock at all, that activity could still take place. Is sort of my answer to myself, but I'm raising.
I don't think anyone's going to go water skiing because the dock exists.
Right, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly, I'm going to get wet anyway, so you might as well just,
It's not just buying a skiing company and running it on the dock. That would be expansion of use that would require a special permit.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay. No, okay, so 8, I'm good, yeah.
okay. So then number 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, fauna? And then what natural resources are on the site? It's the Peconic Bay. There are wetlands and they're endangered species area. So long-eared bat, piping plover, and least terns. Are they connected to resources off the site? This isn't their sole home. So the piping plovers don't just live in her dock. They're the whole causeway,
Yes.
whole causeway. And the long-eared bat is more in the forested region in the center.
Yeah.
That's their happy habitat.
Yeah, other shorebirds are at a real point.
Right.
And inside Real Point, sometimes the outside of Real Point.
We have some nice areas to go away from the people in that area. And then are there any regulated resources that will be impacted, such as wetlands or streams? Wetlands, because there's the whole shore right there is wetlands. But, my note is that that's going to be mitigated by the fact that there'll be an elevated ramp. So people are walking over the wetlands, not through the wetlands like they did this summer. And it's supposed to be a graded surface, not solid plank, so you get light coming through. So that will still promote growth of the wetlands and won't necessarily impact that negative.
It's also to the property owner's benefit to have growth there. To,
Yeah,
that's
because
kind of a.
this is erosion, it reduces runoff. So, I mean, you want to promote that wetlands. Does the project require use of groundwater? No. Is there any resources recognized in a critical environmental area? So it's just that it's in the Peconic Bay region. Are there any threatened endangered habitats? Yes, we did that. The long-eared bat, the piping plover, and the least tern. So one of the mitigating factors we could do is say that, construction has to happen between October and,
Prior to April 1st.
there you go, prior to April 1st, because at that point, they've all migrated. So the terns have gone and the bats have gone into hibernation. They live in caves. We don't have caves, so they move.
And everything's done prior to April 1st for low groins, long shell beach, and everything. We always adhere to that.
That's actually endangered species then.
Yes.
But there is a struggling shell fishery
Mhm.
in Cockles Harbor, which, we're trying, and I don't, again, as you mentioned before, it's in the inner harbor.
Right.
So I don't know if that I'm, can measure that, evaluate that. So one of the suggestions here in the workbook is to maybe ask the CAC for a sort of review of this with an eye to that. Do you think that would be valid?
I mean, standard mitigating procedures done by the installer require them to have essentially silt fence in the water around the area that they're working to prevent it from silting the entire area.
Right.
To prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
So the DEC already has measures in place to make sure that when they do the work on the dock, it doesn't impact surrounding areas.
Right.
So I feel like that's kind of already taken care of.
Right.
I agree.
Or were you concerned about?
Yeah, more concerned about use, back to use. So I don't, again, because this has just never been, we've never asked these, because this is a unique, brand new situation. It's, that's why I was asking, because you guys are more familiar with the CAC's work, if they're even would have a.
I don't think they would know. That's not their wheelhouse.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's just that it was mentioned by the,
Right.
all right.
So what do we think for that one?
For me, I think the operative word in here was result in an adverse change. And I just don't see adverse, I see minimal.
Right. And like if it's just during the construction period, short-lived.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, the area has been used the way it's been used, like the birds aren't going to change their migratory pattern because there's a few extra boats they've already been, that's their set area, same thing with, so, I mean, because this is more about the animals and the environment there. So I see that as being a no.
I do too.
Yeah, I would answer differently, but I'm 3 against 1.
So will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No, I don't think so. I think the ramp kind of prevents that erosion that happened this summer, and so kind of mitigates that. And then it's the same dock. Same location.
Question 11 is so narrowly defined in the workbook that it does not apply. It's will it create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? It's just a defined, you're talking brownfields.
Exactly.
It's just not.
Will it store petrochemicals?
Right. It's really not applicable.
Why? So I think the next question, we need to come up with our list of questions for the applicant as to how the property will be used and what kind of usage they had this season to kind of help understand what's happening there. And then we can look at our mitigating factors, see, how that all
Restrictions.
plays out.
Restrictions and. things we'd want to place on the.
Right.
I like that personal assessment based on the experiences of summer 2022.
Mhm.
Can you tell me, describe for me in a paragraph,
Or even just some statistics.
so statistics, yes. How often it was used, was it every on weekends?
Mhm.
How many boats came to, what percentage of the time were those 8 commercial moorings even used? Were boats tied up to the dock? How many boats maximum could you fit on the
Right.
dock? A whole bunch of those kinds of assessments that, based on what they did this summer, would be important for me to know.
I mean, there were a number of times where I was in Cockles Harbor and I didn't see anybody on the moorings. And I only saw maybe 1 or 2 boats even in that area. One of them was a shuttle. So, I don't know, like, just from my experience, observation this summer, just living life, I didn't recognize a significant change, but,
Based on that and based on that assessment, that you had, whether it was totally accurate, for the whole.
right. I mean, I wasn't there every day. It was like,
So does the owner then say, by the way, I hired this guy to be out there X number of hours and paid him a very healthy salary. He's a certified captain to do this, and it just didn't pan out. These commercial moorings are not panning out. And will that impact your future decision on whether to offer that service? And I would like to know that because, what's plan B? Plan A is use the 8 commercial moorings first and provide the shuttle service.
Well, I think
But,
we need to focus on the dock and how we want to approach the dock. But I guess the questions are how the dock is going to be used, like what's the intention? And then based on that answer, we can decide what factors we need to take into consideration. Okay.
You could even ask the question, because people have a tendency, when I asked Andrea these questions, what are her idea of reasonable restrictions placed on that dock? I'd love to hear from her.
Yeah.
She has some, I may agree or disagree with them, but I think, she's in the past been very free, wanted to do the right thing, and, that here's what we're not going to do. And if she gives it, as opposed to me developing that list of, is important. So I'd like to hear from what they're willing to do in terms of.
So, okay, so also going through this, I mean, a majority of our answers was no. Really just the second, it's the question of use. So I think if we can determine the usage and if we can mitigate it significantly, then we can determine whether or not we need a full evaluation on it. So I think that that is something that we can talk to the consultant about, how they would approach it based on what our responses were.
Right.
Because we're not, secra
Yep.
professionals, but I think that we can take what we've talked about today and kind of present it to someone and get their professional feedback.
And just for the public, we feel very comfortable in doing that. I know it's going to cost us a few bucks to do that, but we want to do it the right way. This was an important question that's come up. We want to make sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's and make the right decision.
And as the first, it might not be the last.
Right, okay.
It might not.
Yes, right, yep, okay, good point.
So we should come up with our list of questions. I suggest the 4 of us email them to each other and Christina.
Okay.
And then Christina can,
Yeah, put them into
massage them
the email
together.
and send them out.
And then we can send them to the applicant.
I agree.
Sounds good.
That's a good plan.
And we'll try and do that before next Tuesday, just so we
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
give ourselves,
Yes.
give me a deadline.
Yeah, we'll get on it right away.
And to just sew this up, the easement question, going forward, they should be working on that?
Yes.
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 Yes, by all means.
Because we want the ownership to be
Yeah.
Properly reflected.
Yeah.
properly,
That's something that
Or just give us solid clarification on it one way or the other.
right,
Who
Right.
owns the physical property?
right. And the DEC reapplication, is that something that the applicant calls the DEC and sees if that's if they would require that, or it's something we investigate,
It's not our application.
not our application?
It's something that they would have to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not our application.
Right, so that should be taken care of. Again, because we're not the only engine here. We're gonna be going on different, and then the idea of 2 docks, we just, at some point, we'll have to have a conversation, maybe council to council.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So, anybody have anything else?
So
Should we call Jerry back?
Call Jerry and Stephen back and,
well, should we, no, we don't want to open up, okay.
no, this is our work session.
Right.
If someone wants to comment in the public comment section, they can.
Mhm.
But, so, yeah, next on the agenda is adjourning this meeting and opening the special meeting. So we'll wait for Jerry to take that action.
Excuse me, what did you just say about the public comment?
There's a section for public comment at the
very end.
Very end.
Of a work session.
section for public comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, after.
Very end of the work.
We have a special meeting to adopt the video conferencing procedures. Then we go around the table and do our board member reports, and then we open it up to.
I have a suggestion for the future, and that is let the public who pays the taxes, supports the local business.
You need to come up to the door.
Speak
Yeah, you need to.
first for their 5 minutes, instead of sitting here for 3 hours while people are muttering and going over things endlessly.
I'd like to clarify, this is not a public hearing, this is our work session. So it's different than a public
I know, but you
hearing.
have a public, and it's unfair to limit people to 3 or 5 minutes and make them wait 3 hours in order to speak about an issue of concern to them.
Okay,
So noted.
thank you.
Now I will,
I don't know. Yeah, we'll find out.
we'll find out.
So,
No, we're waiting, we've got to do it the way Amber.
yeah, so we need to adjourn, you need to adjourn this meeting and then open the special meeting.
We didn't go around the table yet.
No.
Well, we have to do
that
video
afterwards.
conferencing.
We'll do the special meeting first, then go on the table.
Technically, you should have done a special meeting for the budget. We're going to adjourn this meeting and have a special meeting to adopt the video conferencing procedures. Somebody have to?
I have it.
Okay.
Yes.
So moved and
we want
seconded.
For BJ to step back in, or we can?
Yeah.
I think we can proceed. Okay. All right. I'll just, this local law is for the procedures for video conferencing. I'll read the first section of it. I'm not going to read all. There's not a summary, but I'll stop.
No, okay, just, if I could just chime in.
Yes.
So we adopted the local law that authorized us to have video conferencing under extraordinary circumstances. The current state of the law in section 103 of Public Officers Law says that you can only video conference if you make wherever you're video conferencing from open to the public, meaning if you're, on vacation, you would have to give them your hotel room and they would have to be allowed to participate there. That's the only way you can video conference in the state of New York currently. However, there was a change and 103A was adopted, and that allows us to expand the use of video conferencing for members as they can articulate an extraordinary circumstance. So it's actually better because now you can video conference without divulging your location and allowing public to sit there, so long as you can articulate an extraordinary circumstance such as an illness or, caregiving. So what we did already was allow our board members, committees, and yourselves to utilize this new avenue, and we passed that local law already. However, the local law really doesn't come into effect unless we adopt procedures in line with Public Officers Law 103-A. So this is just a resolution adopting our in-house procedures for members of boards and committees and yourselves to utilize video conferencing.
Okay.
I almost feel like I should read this whole thing because
Yeah,
it's
that
so
was really good. Yeah,
confusing.
right.
So I'm going to bite the bullet.
Unless you want me to give you a quick,
You
Yeah.
got the summary? You have it there?
no, you can read it.
Well,
It may be good to read it. I
yeah.
think it's
They
great.
are confused.
We'll get it
I think it's a good.
Yeah.
So whereas pursuant to local law number 9 of 2022, adopted on September 7th, 2022, the town board of the town of Shelter Island authorized members of the town's public bodies to participate in meetings using video conference technology in a manner consistent with the New York State Public Officers Law, section 103-A, subject to the adoption of written procedures governing and public attendance. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby sets forth the following procedures as it relates to video conferencing, consistent with New York State's Public Officers Law, Section 103-A. 1, a minimum number of members of the public body must be present to fulfill the public body's quorum requirement in the same physical location where the public can attend. 2, members of the public body are physically present at any such meeting unless such member is unable to be physically present at any such meeting location due to extraordinary circumstances. A, extraordinary circumstances shall include disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes the member's physical attendance at any such meeting. B, extraordinary circumstances shall not include vacations, conflicting social engagements, nor living in another state on a seasonal basis. 3, if a member cannot be physically present at any such meeting due to an extraordinary circumstance, the member must notify the chair and clerk of the public body via email at least 4 hours prior to the posted start of said meeting so that efforts can be made to ensure a quorum will be physically present at such meeting location. 4, except in the case of executive sessions conducted pursuant to Public Officers Law, Section 105, the public body that utilizes video conferencing shall ensure that members of that public body can be heard, seen, and identified while the meeting is being conducted, including but not limited to any motions made and any other matter formally discussed or voted upon. Thus, a member's camera may not be turned off during the meeting. 5, the minutes of the meeting shall include, which, if any, members participated remotely and shall be made available to the public pursuant to Public Officers Law, Section 106. The public notice for the meeting shall inform the public, A, that video conferencing shall be used, B, where the public can view and/or participate in such meeting, C, where required documents and records will be posted or available, and D, of the physical location for the meeting where the public can attend. 7, each meeting shall be recorded, and such recordings shall be posted or linked on the town's website within 5 business days following the meeting and shall remain available for a minimum of 5 years thereafter. Such recordings shall be transcribed upon request. 8, members of the public shall have the opportunity to view the meeting via video and to participate in proceedings via video conference in real time where public comment or participation is authorized. Said video conferencing must allow for the same public participation or testimony as in-person participation or testimony. 9, the public body shall utilize technology to permit access by members of the public with disabilities consistent with the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, as amended, and corresponding guidelines. For purposes of this provision, disability shall have the meaning defined in Executive Law Section 292. 10, in the event of a state of disaster emergency, in the event a state of a disaster emergency is declared by either the governor or the town supervisor pursuant to Executive Law Section 24, the in-person requirements of paragraph 1 above shall not apply if the public body determines that the circumstances necessitating the emergency declaration would affect or impair the ability of the public body to hold in-person meetings. And be it further resolved that these procedures may be amended and changed as needed by town board resolution, and be it further resolved that these procedures shall be conspicuously posted on the town's website for so long as video conferencing is utilized. So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so basically what it's saying is Zoom changed the way we do business everywhere.
Right.
Rather than try to take advantage of it, they're putting some restrictions on, how we attend and what we can do.
No, and they, saw that it was successful, and they didn't want to limit video conferencing to only where you divulge your location and allow the public to come in your living room.
Right.
So they broadened the scope of it and your ability to utilize it.
Okay, so we'll close the special meeting, go back to the work session, and we'll do board member reports. Meg, you want to start us off?
We had a comprehensive plan public workshop last night, which I think went very well. We had some good comments, some good feedback.
Turnout?
We had a good turnout.
It always could be more, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see some new faces.
Yeah.
But we do get, good participation.
Yeah.
There were some changes requested that we're making. So we're going to have the updated chapters posted soon. I just want to put everything from last night onto them first. And then,
We introduced Julia Weissenberg, our new member of this.
yep,
TTF.
yep. So, overall, I think that went well. And we have our CPAC meeting, our committee meeting on Monday, this upcoming Monday at 6:30.
Again, public viewing and then comments at the end.
And that's to go over what you did.
And that's to go over new chapters.
New chapter.
New chapters. So we'll do a quick review of how the meeting went. We were all there, which is great now. So, and then, we're going to broach new chapters. Okay. And then other than that, I have, what was last week? Sorry. Green Options met last week. They're going to be looking at comp plan for us. They are looking into like more composting ideas and concepts. Southold has a program that they're using that's interesting, so they're going to kind of look into that. They're also researching ways to help the town become more energy independent, and there are some programs that they're looking into for that. So a lot of good research and information is coming out of Green Options, and they're going to be giving us an update on some of the comprehensive plan information for the utilities chapter and things like that, on different ways to use more environmentally renewable energy sources and things that will help make our grid more robust, because we're always susceptible to storms and things like that. And then, let's see, what else did I have? That's pretty much it. That was, yeah, it was a lot. It's good. It was a good week.
Jim?
Very quickly, I listened to last night's meeting, talking about trees, power lines, on public health and human services, which I'm going to work a little bit to get you some material
Please,
on
that would be great.
And the one on Chapter 9 on transportation, parking and traffic management, speed limits, traffic studies needed, parking issues, a lot on parking, especially with the new restaurant and everything else, safety for the public. I did distribute to all of you, town of Shelter Island, how we can make our roads safer. I put down some thoughts, 1 through 5 on the bottom. I do get the question asked oftentimes, is this an accident just ready to happen? And what I put on the bottom of that sheet was identify roadways. My number one thing, what we have to do, we all recognize it, where vegetation has diminished visibility for drivers, bikers, and pedestrians. The number one thing we need to work on is clean up that. Number 2 is speed limits. Highly controversial, and I don't want to go into a big thing on that. I remember several years back that people from St. Mary's asking us to reduce the speed limit by 5 miles an hour, which we did, or 10 miles. I think we settled at 5, bringing that down. But that's something that we can look at. Also, in terms of controlling speeds, I love the idea of using those solar-powered radar signs, speed signs. I think they're not big, they're very inconspicuous, but they do send the right message along, major roads like West Neck, Brandon Parkway, and different stretches where people always complain about people doing 45, 50 miles an hour, where the speed limit is really 30. It works on New York Avenue, it works around town. We're starting to see them. They're better than the other alternatives. The other alternatives look about speed cushions, speed tables, speed bumps versus speed humps. There were 4 different types of approaches there. I know they use them in California and in LA very successfully, and they're not bumps or humps. They're extended 12 feet wide kinds of things that slow traffic down through residential areas. They're very effective in terms of that. Again, creating one-way traffic on certain roads, which we talked about with New York Avenue, but then I mentioned, BJ mentioned that last night. The only thing is from the fire department, I know getting volunteers to the firehouse during critical times, if you had it one way going out and not back into, that could pose a problem. But the parking issues in and around hotels, restaurants, a lot of discussion about downtown, in the north end of town with the Cheekwick and the Triangle and solving that problem. These are problems we can solve in the off season. I'd love to be able to take this, get a group of people together, to work on these things. And road widths, we talked about road widths.
Let me just interrupt. I thought the cheap discussion was a little premature. The
Yeah.
parking lot's not open.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with
It's not an
that.
expansion.
No, I totally agree with that.
Yes.
Once that parking lot opens up, you're going to be able to accommodate 15, 20 cars, if not more, in that parking lot.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I did talk about road widths, going up the hill at West Neck. When the county redid the road on West Neck, they did reclaim about 18 inches, 24 inches to the right-hand side, some places 3 feet. Every little bit helps, especially when bikers are going up that hill and, you have heavy traffic going up and down that hill. It's important. So there's might be places around town where we might be able to, even if you pick up a couple of feet and you have places where bikers or runners or pedestrians can go in case they need to go someplace. But the number one thing we need to start with is attacking those visibility areas. I will tell you that it is official that I will announce it, that Lucille Burgers, who is our part-time social worker, is stepping down effective 1 November. And we'll need a new part-time social worker. Talk to her about that. It's a personnel matter, so I'll talk about it with the board in private. And that was pretty much it. We did meet last week as a group, discuss some things, but again, these are private matters with clients that are experiencing some difficulties that we're trying to help out. So I can handle that, with individual members. Thank you.
Okay. Amber?
Website committee met this morning. I've already just double checked. The budget is on the website.
Great.
So anyone who wants to look at it has access to it now. We're also going to be taking away, because summer has ended, the recreation department button, and we'll be replacing it with a housing button. In particular, we want to get information about the housing plan there, information about the November referendum, the 0.5% tax that's being proposed. So it'll be a landing place for people to just more easily find information.
Okay.
And the other thing I have is from WQI, Coco had brought to my attention last, I think it was in June, and just fell through the cracks. Someone who received a septic rebate requested a revisit for the amount of rebate that they had received based upon extenuating circumstances. So you should be getting from Coco a WQI packet of information so that we can review and discuss whether or not we as a town board. It was recommended by WQI for the town board to review this. So we just never followed up on it. Howard and I both just.
I'm going to recuse myself from that conversation, so please do not send me the packet.
Okay.
On it. Yeah.
Okay. And that's all that I have.
BJ?
WAC met, first of all, there was a meeting last Thursday night, hosted by the WAC at the library. What are we drinking tonight? Really great. Lisa Shaw led that. Very informative about emerging contaminants, primarily in our aquifer, but really not our problem alone. It's a problem nationwide, probably worldwide. Just a great presentation. And WAC was supposed to meet, but we got bitten yesterday by the new law. We didn't have an in-person quorum. So there's a study in just sort of members of all committees need to be conscientious about responding to the emails that ask every committee gets asked, who's coming?
Right.
So people need to respond to that now. It's really important because some people showed up and somebody had zoomed in who, was going to be a guest at that meeting yesterday. And all of that is inconvenienced and for naught if y'all don't respond to the emails.
It's important that we know that there's going to be attendance at the meetings
Right.
now.
Very
Before, it was easy to be like, oh, I only have 5 minutes, I'll just log in.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to really put it in your calendar and make sure that you show up.
Yeah.
And if you can't, let us know so that we can make sure there's still a quorum. Because we did that fire drill last night for comp plan, we called everybody to make sure we had 6 people in attendance so that we could have the meeting.
Right.
So it's very important,
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
visited CAC last week. So
Yeah.
it's like,
And so, and this whole idea is if you have the extenuating circumstance that prevents you from being there and you can zoom in, you don't count. I mean, you don't count in terms of a quorum. So just to keep that in mind, that yes, you might have a legitimate excuse to zoom in and participate, but that won't help us in terms of establishing.
Right.
It took me forever to learn that.
Yeah, oh, I think it's just a little quick, planning board, we have 1 or 2,
2.
so can we get those scheduled for
Christina?
October 4th? Okay, thank you, yes, sorry.
No, that's a good one, because they're tiny now. If they miss one person, it's.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
You only have 4 and you need 3.
Yeah.
BJ, that's it?
No, I'm done, thanks.
Stephen, anything?
Nothing, Mr.
Okay, anything from the newspapers?
Nothing from me, thank you. Hi, I have a question that has to do with 3 Oak Tree Lane. So I don't know if this is something that is typically looked at, but I know in past wetlands permit applications, you've discussed it along the lines of this: X number of square feet currently are in the regulated zone, and the new proposal calls for X number of square feet to be in the regulated zone. And it's very hard on this application. It appears that there's quite a bit more going into that 25-foot regulated zone than was already there. And I'm just wondering if I'm missing the place on the plan where that's expressed, or if that's something that maybe just isn't a standard thing you usually do, but you sometimes do. It certainly is useful.
Right.
It's a good point, though. I think if I had to summarize, if I'm not mistaken, things that were in the 75-foot area have been removed.
Got
Including
that.
the pool, everything. However, between the 75 and the 100 feet, that other 25-foot buffer, yeah, you probably have more in there now than you had before, I'm assuming, because it's more building. And they're all, it really parallels the road, but I think if you look at again, the sides of that house, they're not wide, but if you take the setback off of Oak Tree Lane and you come in, there's not a lot of room to play with there. So, but you're right, it's a good legitimate point.
Yeah.
I think less than the 75-foot,
It
but
pulls-
more
yeah.
between 75 and 100.
It pulls everything out of that 75-foot vegetative buffer.
Yeah.
And so it does leave, it leaves a lot of it in that 25-foot regulated area.
Yes.
But we don't really have restriction on that 25-foot regulated area on how much. It's the 100-foot exemption for the 75-foot. You're allowed to build in the 25, you just require the permits and you require the mitigation and everything else. But we can do the math and figure out exactly what that ratio is.
All right, it's Matt to do.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. In my mind, I was gonna kick that to Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Consider it kicked.
thanks, Matt.
Thank you. And it was more just, it's something that I've heard you discuss before and seemed to be absent from this conversation. Thanks.
Hey, anybody else in the audience? Mr. Ween,
I signed
go
up
ahead,
first.
come on.
Here. And for the rest of the Zoom world, if you could state your names.
Charlo Taylor. It was with great enthusiasm that I learned from a resident named Karen that Shelter Island planned to revive a deer nourishment program, the DNP, that involved permethrin, the truly effective tick repellent, per the experts. I thought, with all its natural beauty and charm, Shelter Island is a leader in innovative solutions as well. This is brilliant. People likely brought ticks to the island with landscaping plants, perhaps birds also. Do we kill off all wildlife or get rid of ticks? Deer have a 30 million year history of evolution. Well, our latest rendition of human animals is 500,000 years ago. Our area's last large mammal is the deer, a non-predatory herbivore causing harm to no one. As such, cars run into deer, Deer do not run into cars. The deer's genetic memories can calculate speeds of 30 to 40 miles per hour, the running speed of a bear. People who drive at excessive speeds, and there are plenty of them, I've learned, will hit deer. Careful drivers driving the speed limit or slightly below will not. I applaud the intelligent letter of a Miss Cuthbertson to the Shelter Island Reporter. Rather than a program for good, the Neanderthal mentality has prevailed here on Shelter Island in the form of a children's archery exercise straight out of a tale of immorality called Lord of the Flies. Have you read this classic story of barbarian behavior? Instead of maligning deer, we must celebrate them. The subject of classical symphonies, poetry, art, and literature for hundreds, even thousands of years, let us not return to the Stone Age, where 64,000 years ago, an arrowhead was abandoned in a South African cave, the oldest known relic of its nature. Children should not be chasing deer with bows and arrows. With care and an intelligent nourishment program, our American students could be inspired toward careers in nursing, nutrition, medicine, and veterinary work. We need professionals in America. Children need positive, not predatory activities to bring strong mental health. Let intelligent heads prevail. 1, require the protection of indigenous plants when construction occurs. 2, indigenous plants conserve the water aquifer, as I know you know. Build Audubon recommended wildlife corridors throughout the island for bees, butterflies, birds, and other wildlife, including deer. 4, restore the deer nourishment program in more than one area on the island. 5, encourage the planting of fruit and nut trees throughout the island. Healthy wildlife have fewer ticks. I know this to be true.
Okay, your 3 minutes was up,
Well,
just to give you a warning, if you just let me finish the
Yes.
sentence.
Okay.
Thank you, so as soon, if you could
Thank
wrap
you.
up.
I am
Thanks.
wrapping up.
Thank you.
6, have students involved in the program. Hold a car wash for the benefit of a nourishment program. My granddaughter's 5th grade class raised $400 at one bake sale for marine conservation, and she lives in the middle of the country. 7, students with a purpose stay off drugs. 8, traffic violators could opt for community service in the wildlife nourishment program. 9, drop the deer and tick committee name. It does a grave disservice to deer. 10, permethrin spray should be used on all landscape materials prior to their arrival on the island. 11.
Can I ask how many more you have?
What?
Can I ask how many more?
This is the last one.
Okay.
I've listened for
Yep.
over 3 years.
Yes, thank you.
These are our rules.
Well, we want sensible rules in this country. I am happy to donate the first $2,500 toward reviving I call peanuts and permethrin, a deer nourishment program to compensate for habitat destruction, which has placed all wildlife in jeopardy. As wildlife, especially mammals, nurture and educate their own, we are responsible for their care and maintenance as an integral part of our own country's amazing wildlife. As a Christian, this is a repetitive theme. Take care of the earth. Wildlife
Ma'am,
and wildlife habitat should not be an afterthought.
ma'am, you have to stop, please.
I love the motto of Earth Justice, an environmental law firm, my last sentence, Earth Justice, because the earth needs a good lawyer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just for the record, the town has no intention of starting a deer nourishment program at this time.
That's such a sad thing.
Well,
It's actually
Banned by the DEC,
which is
why we can't do it.
No.
Fish and Wildlife is going by rules that have not been
Ma'am,
updated.
please stop speaking. Ma'am, please stop speaking.
1862.
Please stop speaking.
Okay.
We also have
Thank you
Mr.
very
Let's get with it.
We also have Mr.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you very much.
Clerk
My
meeting.
hearing isn't that good, so I may be repeating stuff. It's four of you were talking about that I didn't hear. Okay. First of all, according to John Needham and Bob DeLuca, Cockles Harbor is probably the most pristine bucolic harbor between here and Chatham. And when you compare it to Sunset Beach, Sunset wasn't built in a year. It took several years to build up. If the Ramshead Inn extinguishes the easement and moves the dock onto their property, can the town do anything to prevent them from building another dock on the Bennett property? I don't think they can. The dock on the causeway this summer, which wasn't supposed to be used, when boats on the Bennett dock were filling the dock, boats parked on the causeway dock and launch ferried people back and forth. So there were two docks that were filled with boats all at the same time. So much for enforcement. And finally, if the owner of the Ramshead Inn comes in here and says that the Ramshead Inn needs the docks and the launch and the moorings in order to increase business 33%, in order to be profitable and have a profitable operation continue, and said it in this very room and more times than once, how do you not consider this an expansion of commercial use in a residential zone for non-conforming pre-existing business? Think about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Anybody in the Zoom audience want to say anything? Don't see any hands up,
All right.
so I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
You're going into any, no?
No.
No, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, thank you, everybody.